here's something we hope you'll really like.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
We're traveling through a dimension both of sound and ideas. We're at a place where the mind can comprehend and devise a wireless transmitter, measure time and light. Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it in a place that's known as...
Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Camore.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
We've launched. Welcome, everybody. We're starting Planet Green Trees officially. Starting now.
Yes.
We're doing it live.
Doing it live.
Doing it live.
We're calling this episode number 468. I believe this show title was Pig Stain on Your Fat Face.
That was it.
Okay.
What is the meaning of that?
Is
Is that a Pink Floyd line? Pink stain on your fat face?
Yes.
It certainly is.
Yes. In 2000.
From Animals, great tune.
Well, there's a video from 2018 in October. 16? When was Trump elected? 16?
16.
Right. So 2016 October, he's playing live in Mexico City, Mexico, and he's playing that song, and there's a lot of. But anyways, it just seemed appropriate. And but we got a great show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of great topics. We've got phenomenal people surrounding to bring you that entertainment. Let me first introduce everybody surrounding me here, starting with different order. We'll start with the. He's kind of playing guinea pig tonight. I know he's got a great catalog of music, and so he's been able to put a good band together. But we're going to start out with him right now.
And I am Steve Miller. I'll help you out with that.
There was just so much action on that. For some reason, the energy and stuff was
So, yeah.
Very Shakespearean, yeah.
And let me.
Those redemption diamonds seem to have people giggly.
They appear to be working from Botanical in Tawas, courtesy of. Thank you very much, and we are enjoying, fellas. We are enjoying. We have a couple of different Diamonds products with us tonight, but we'll get to those later. But because that's an actual bit for the show tonight, guys.
It is, and
bit.
Steve Miller now does drive a motorcycle and incidentally bought a helmet that makes him look like Darth Vader. Who knew? Anyways, moving around the room here in a very comfortable seat.
Very comfortable.
I may switch with him later on. I'm not sure. I don't know if we even said that it was okay to.
No, we can swap. We can switch.
Maybe a little while. See what.
We should. We should change things. It's always good to change
It'll be
things
fun.
up every now and then.
Like every 30 minutes, we'll just swap.
I hate living in a comfort zone. I hate it. I'd much rather be
yourself
on
out of your comfort
edge as I normally am. That's no
A-
problem.
absolutely.
Steve,
We wouldn't want you any other way,
So,
Michael.
Steve, every 30 minutes, we need you to yell, switch!
All right. It will occur, Jim.
Perfect.
Jim Powers is here. He's here. He's going to add some comments here.
I am here. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And looking forward to a great show.
Jim wants to
Absolutely.
remind everybody that he will be monitoring closely the chat box and make sure any questions that are asked.
You can see I'm monitoring it right now.
He's got absolutely no devices in front of him, but he will make sure that information is brought forward to us. Moving around the room from the elevation station and the bringer of all things that would seemingly be grown out of the ground, please welcome elevation station Amanda Jocelyn.
Thank you, and good to be here. And Tommy really came through with the spread tonight. I have to say.
All right. We are back to spreading again,
With-
Amanda.
Yes, we are. And guess who just walked in? Everybody
Mr.
needs
Dewey.
one. Everybody needs one.
What do you know?
Dewey.
No social distancing.
I
at all.
thought
love you.
I thought
love you.
old people were
Come
to
on.
remain in quarantine another 3 months, Dewey.
Come on.
That's because he's a spring chicken. That's why he's out.
That's no age shaming.
I know. I was just kidding, Dwayne.
That may be one of the
But-
downfalls of the diamonds. We have to monitor that. Write that down. It's a possible possible forcing on age shaming.
Everything good?
Dewey's here. And as I like to say
Just
quite
in
a
time.
lot, everybody needs a Dewey. Thanks for being here tonight.
I
man.
am here.
All right. You look very summery and healthy, and
Yeah.
hair's flowing like
full of
usual.
energy.
Always. He always has nice hair.
Man, I'm just lucky.
Yeah.
Just lucky. Some
Speak-
hillbilly jeans, that's what it is.
It's
And,
that cornbread.
Speaking of dictators from the Middle East, let me now turn to Alan Peisner, who is, not to be mistaken with Muammar Gaddafi, but my dear friend, the Rasta Rabbi, please. He is the master of all Zoom. If you have a Zoom question, do not hesitate to call him. What is on your shirt there? What are you promoting today there?
Well, this says Michigan Medical Marijuana Association.
Yes, great
that.
organization.
This is a very famous organization sponsored by Comorn Law,
That's
who are
right.
the premier marijuana attorneys in the state.
Very famous. Very
But I,
famous, Jim.
yeah, and I just want to say, though, it's great to be here on this show. Comorn Law can be reached at 800-656-3557. But it's great to be here, and I think Amanda's laughing too much there in the background. I want to know what she's laughing about.
No, you know what? I've been partaking in quite a bit of cannabis products this afternoon. So, if anything, that's what it is. Everything's excellent tonight, but it's good to see you.
I would
Likewise.
credit that with the effort that's put into the production of these shows. You don't know the amount of time and energy and thought that goes into it. Alan, you do because you've been on some of our meetings, but pre-production, working, getting ready, and ready to speak about all of these particular items are going to be discussed as we go through them, I guess, a little later. That's right.
A lot of time invested, a lot of papers read.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of papers smoked.
Amanda is like our mother hen around this place.
Moving around the Zoom room, I see no goats and I see no llamas. I think there's
No.
on the other side that there's Big
Gosh
Daddy Rick
darn it.
Thompson and Jimmy Lowell, if I understand things. If we're lucky enough, I think they're supposed to be there. They, of course, are the masterminds behind the Jazz Cabbage Cafe, which
Jazz Cabbage.
you can hear on Tuesdays from 4 to 6. It is not a competing but complimentary podcast. Rick, of course, does the news on at least once a week. I've been seeing that. Very informative, Rick. Keep at
Thank
that.
you.
Rick, you've also started doing some of those Saturday updates too, haven't you, recently?
Yep. I started doing the cannabis news back in 2010 and 2011 on the Real Radio with broadcasting with Steve Green, and then I migrated that over to Planet Green Trees, where the news lived for years and years and years. And I've sort of taken it with me to all the different venues I've been through. But I think I'm launching it sort of as a standalone item at this point. The video technology is much better, much easier for me to master now. And before I sucked at it. But I would like to say one thing. I was on a national conference call with Normal chapters. I'm on the board of directors of Michigan Normal, and they said something that resonated with me today. And they said that all cannabis law reform is police reform, and that's true. And we've been doing police reform, the same kind of police reform that's being called out by George Floyd's protesters for weeks now.
We've been doing this for years.
Yes, we sure have. And let's not that we want to take anything away from anyone else, but let's remember, we've actually been pretty instrumental in making some changes for law enforcement in Michigan.
Well, Mike, out of this little Michael Comorn law office.
Yeah, she's called the Attorney General, isn't she?
Has done a lot of good work for rights and just such the what the police have done to the people and the things I've witnessed out of this office. That and the good in and through the good work that Michael Comorn does out of that office has been in essence fighting for the individual rights of people. And when it comes down to that, or marijuana, whatever it may be, fighting for the rights of the people, and we have done that solidly through cannabis defense work in this office.
Let's make sure.
The war on drugs disproportionately affected persons of color. We all know that. So when we help to make corrections to the war on drugs, we exceptionally assist the communities of color that we're friends with, Michael.
Absolutely.
Well, if we're gonna, I wanted to introduce Jamie. I think is Jamie here or not?
Amy here. I start the show also affected by the redemption diamonds.
All right. Well, I just want to make sure your pretty mug was recognized and you were heard from. But Rick, I like the comments that you made. And last week I went to great lengths. I think it took like 4 or 5 different. There's 4 parts to it, but I tried to make the case for what solutions could be real solutions for the problems that exist in the related to the protesting that's going on and the terrible shooting, terrible killing of George Floyd. But I made the point that this goes back to a specific point in time with the Nixon proclaiming the making marijuana Schedule 1. I mean, I read the Ehrlichman quote, which was, there was 2 political opponents, the Civil Rights Movement and the war protesters for Nixon. We couldn't make it illegal for people to be black or war protesters, so we came up with a war on drugs. So there was a design, an institution that, and the reality is that the police forces had the discretion. The executive branch has the discretion to decide to prosecute, or the executive branch, including the police, they get to enforce the laws. They get to choose where they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, what community.
Did someone activate a metronome?
No, it's this fan in the bunker.
Okay.
Justin.
No problem.
But you would notice that my rhythm is right on the metronome. I'm just hitting it.
You are actually working your words right in alignment with that 4-beat. Yes.
But the point being that it was the war on drugs, I think, that has gotten us to this particular point. I tried to make the case that there is an inherent racism within the police departments because of this clear disproportionality of the number of people that are arrested for the use of drugs, people that are in jail, when same amount of activity and use has been established, and the disproportionality of the community relative to everybody else makes it all obviously something that is not sensitive to color. And
Michael, if our viewers wanted to pick up on that episode, is that available on the Planet Green Trees YouTube channel?
Yes, it is. The Comorn Law YouTube has got the Planet Green Trees TV shows hosted. But yes, that's and of course it's hosted on the Facebook as well, as it records and hosts there. I don't want to get off on this too much, but you make a good point. It is, and we'll come back to it. Let's come back to that. It's a great topic, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about it as we begin to tease the topic. So tonight's show and topics that we're going to be discussing. We have a musical performance by the one and only Jeff Frazier. Is that real? Did he send in his music that was?
Yes,
okay.
Justin said that we will have Jeff Frazier video for that portion tonight.
That sounds great.
Love that guy.
Okay. Topic 1, we're going to talk about Detroit police. City leaders address the violent protesters in downtown Detroit for George Floyd. That'll give us a chance to get back to that. Dana Nessel, our Attorney General, says to the feds,
"Oh Lord,
don't call us, we'll call you." What is she talking about? Topic number 3, the U.S. spends twice as much on law and order as it does on cash welfare, data shows. Topic number 4, Alan, cannabis and taxes, the challenges of non-deductible expenses in the cannabis market. There's a recent opinion that came down. And topic 5 appears to be Steve Miller's Cannabis Entertainment Corner, C.E.C, not to be confused with C.C.E. And he will be reviewing
They're very different.
Yes.
Cannabis Diamonds products. Review produced by and or brought to you by Redemption, Ryan Bassor's brand. Ryan was a guest of the show a couple weeks back and discussed that. At the time, well, now we can say that apparently the diamonds are available. Topic 6, which kind of goes with topic 1, the New York State 57 police officers resign from team to support officer suspended for shoving the 75-year-old man that was pushed onto his back. And
I think they killed him.
No, his ear was bleeding. But that's the headline. That's the headline for that. So,
was his ear actually bleeding, or was it coming from the back of his head? Now,
He was
I've heard
bleeding
two
from his
different
head.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, the police said he tripped until somebody showed the video of him knocking him down.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly, he was pushed.
Oh, it was clear as day.
There was arguments.
With violence.
There was arguments that he's like a rebel rouser, that he had a police scanner, that he follows the police. He's like an activist or whatever.
They said his telephone could disable the police's.
All right, that's what I don't know. If
He was dangerous. He could have taken them all out if they didn't.
I don't know if any of that is true. I don't know if any of that's true.
Yeah, right.
But holding that in his hand, and even if he's a rabble rouser, he did not seem to be causing any threat to anybody. And,
He wasn't rousing any rivals.
and the point of why I think this is so significant. And then I think it goes in line with even the head of the police union, I think, in New York was.
Yes.
He was screaming.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because this is in New York, and these 57 police officers. No, I'm sorry. That group of officers that were walking down the street, they were not attacked by him. He may have shown them something. He may have had a phone. I don't know what happened, but they clearly pushed him, where he resulted in falling down and hitting his head. Now,
and that is, I just want to bump in really quick. I used to help teach these riot formations. And that's not what we teach the guys to do, what those guys did. Just so that's clear.
Well, does it matter what they're taught? Because,
yes.
Well, it may be to some, it may be some kind of, but when you have no accountability, no liability. Now, these two officers were charged with simple assault, right, for doing that. Would this have normally happened? Probably not.
No.
I mean, the idea that during protests like this, when the police decide to step it up and take control of the streets, there's never any criminal charges brought. We are just in a brand new state of high alert for the very first time where something like that would happen.
And Macomb County refused to prosecute the black Amazon driver. You know about that story?
No, what happened?
Well, he was.
It's brutal.
He was just parked facing the wrong way on the street.
Yes.
And they came up and demanded his ID and all that kind of stuff, and he refused.
They took him down.
The police?
Said,
yeah.
And the police were like, all he did is show us his ID, and he would have gotten just a ticket or a warning. So if all he did was worthy of a ticket or a warning, they never really actually needed to see his ID. Then,
they don't need to see his ID.
Right. So they took him down. They arrested him. All this kind of stuff. They tried to get the prosecutors to charge him with obstructing the police and resisting.
Oh, they wouldn't. Okay.
And they did not do it. No.
Interesting. Well, then that may be
New world kind of decision, kind of like
that. May. I mean, there's not even a clear path that would be something that there would be civil liability for. You know what I mean? Like, because they still have to overcome the liability. Now, an illegal arrest is a constitutionally protected thing. The question is whether or not there's existing case on point factually that would lead them to believe that it's not something they could do. But it's tragic. In this particular case, what happens, which is interesting, is that the officers were charged. And I would say only because it was on video was what brought that up. And only because of what's taking place. And this whole frenzy of what's taking place is about recognizing the protesters' rights and how the police interact generally with the population in protesting and as they do with people like George Floyd. So they're all under the microscope. You know, in no other time would we find this era where there's a discussion about defunding, where there's a discussion about changing the way in which those things are, or policing is taking place. But with that being said, this particular New York situation with a 75-year-old, two of the officers were charged for assault, and 57 police officers in that team resigned from their
SWAT team.
The SWAT team.
Tactical team.
In support of that particular officer those two officers being charged. Now,
you said in support of those two officers being charged, but that's in defiance of the charging of those two
correct.
officers, right?
Well,
they left their job because they wanted to protect their two brother officers.
Correct, and they didn't want to act in that capacity anymore. They still officers. I think they just pulled themselves out of this particular special unit, whatever it was, and they did so in a protest for those two being charged. Now, that would mean that that group within that entity, that whatever the protest group, policing of the protest group, that group, the 15 tactical team, that they thought that was appropriate behavior, and they would defend it all day long. And given the chance to continue to do it, they would have done the same thing and know that they could get away with it. I mean, as I said last week, that the police have an absolute 100% monopoly on violence. Nobody else can own violence the way they do and do things like that and get away with it. Now, we're beginning to see, and it doesn't matter. Only under these circumstances with that many cameras out is something going to happen. If they turned it off today, nothing would change. Right down the line, every single police entity would be doing the same business as usual, which includes internally investigating themselves. There's no outside third party, right?
Right.
They have no civil liability, so
no.
There's no, and if they do get some kind of, if they do something nefarious or deemed inappropriate in court, they violate someone's rights, there's no list to which their name is reported to. There's no recording of that particular data so others can know. If they're fired from a police department, they can go work someplace else.
There is no accountability when these officers do that. They're, sometimes you get an officer that gets caught, he's properly investigated and dealt with accordingly. Those do occur out there. There is departments in which those situations do occur. But for the most part, and it's gotten worse over the years, is the police often get a pass from the prosecutors and the judges, and we feel sorry for them, and they don't need to know the law because they're not lawyers, and you know what, that situation got a little too heated up for him, and he may have used a little excessive force, so we can't charge him because he really didn't mean it, and we got to be able to allow these police to use a little extra force if they need to. And that's what we've been hearing all the past 30 years, essentially.
So this represents a bigger problem that I think we're not talking about. So let's just address it real quickly. That's 57 people in a tactical response unit that think they get to make the rules. And when their boss tells them, hey, you guys were wrong, the rules are like this, they said, fuck you, boss. If we don't get to make the rules, we're out of here.
Yep.
Right?
That's exactly what they
instead
did.
of taking direction from leadership, instead of modifying their behavior at the demand of leadership, they would rather walk than modify the way they conduct their business. That's treacherous.
We say we want to overhaul a lot of these departments and agencies. Them leaving on their own accord makes it easier to get a head start on that.
I agree.
Absolutely. 57 new opportunities for right-thinking people to get hired into that tactical response unit, but it's dangerous precedent.
But the hiring, there's no incentive to hire anyone different. If they hire the same group of people and they conduct themselves in the exact same way and nothing changes, we're in the same spot we were before.
What we need
and there's
to
no
do,
camera there. Wait,
No, the top cop of the state of Michigan says we just need to pay them more and give them better training.
here you go. I want to let's talk
Isn't
about
that
this
what
for
we
a
need
second.
to do, Steve?
Let's talk about this for a second. Let me make
That's
this point.
already there,
Let me make
Jim.
this point. This is not about a political position. I'm just going to say this. What I'm about to say does not glorify Republicans, and it certainly doesn't glorify Democrats, because the problem is, like the war on drugs, neither party did anything at all, period. One party came around a little bit, barely, like, tax and regulate. That's what we got. They still don't fully understand the social injustice. There's cases that are still pending. They don't realize the forfeiture, civil liabilities that they have. They just want to, cannabis caucus, lying.
Cannabis caucus.
Anyways,
Remember the election?
so let me say. Let's talk about our lead, because the candidate opposing the incumbent at the presidential level is probably one of the more responsible people, politically speaking, for where we are with the disproportionality of how the crime laws have been made and enforced. We're talking about Joe Biden, talking about the crime bills. 3 strikes are out. There's a couple discussions I've heard him, back in the 90s, where these people, quote unquote, have to be separated.
Yep.
There's no There's no salvage for them.
Right.
I mean, this is
Oh, it was horrible.
these kind of comments at that time bred and encouraged and
He was
funded.
one of the architects of the drug war.
Oh, yes.
Well, Nixon is the investor.
Well, I understand.
Nixon did it.
He instigated
purely,
it for sure.
And as it goes, it became a thing.
But in the 90s, it got amped up, and Joe Biden was right
Joe
there.
Biden and the Clintons,
Okay.
heavy-handedly.
That's not to say that the other side, as we speak here, isn't doing 20. I mean, look, their concept, they want to take control of the streets, right? I mean, at least there's been a reforming of a reform of the mentality. I don't think that Biden has actually admitted that he's made mistakes, but at least he's got. I don't know.
I'll tell you what needs to happen right now is that we need to control the people in the police departments. Instead of the philosophy that's been going on for the past 30 years is that we need to control the people that we're protecting. We need to control them. We need to do like the military does. The military controls their people. So police departments need to control their people that work for them, in which there's accountability and discipline in place. Some departments have it, some don't, but something consistent around the whole nation and police departments, and where there's a high level of discipline and control of those officers working in those departments. That is the only way that you can get some real law enforcement reform. Right now, the unions kind of run things. The 57 tactical officers who decided to quit and protest that their officers who were wrong and assaulted that man didn't get away with it. So we are going to take our balls and go home.
You know, I pointed this out, and it may not have been a popular thing to say at the time, but when I was trying to make the point about the rule of law and how important it is, remember, the sheriffs and police across the state were saying, we're not going to enforce the executive order. You know, it's the law. Like, they shouldn't have the discretion of any of this. You know, it goes to, like, we're going to do whatever we want. There may be some laws we're supposed to do. We're not doing it. We're in charge of everything. We're going to enforce the law. We're going to decide who we're going to arrest. You know,
and the sheriff decides their interpretation of the Constitution is the only valid one, and that the executive branch and the judicial branch don't have anything to say about it.
So dangerous, Rick. But our other
but it's not new. I mean, this is what we've dealt with for the last 12 years, ever since the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act was enabled.
Agreed, 100%. Yes,
which is why we can't just allow the solution to remain within police departments. The solution has to remain within the power of the people, which is greater oversight, decentralized control, and standards that are applicable across the board.
No, none of that gets us to the point where we need to, Rick. And what I'm saying to you is that when they have zero accountability, and I mean civil liability, these departments are about getting a budget and using the budget and doing its task, which is to bring in money for the city. That's essentially what they're doing. Policing, public safety, whatever. But
did you see where that one George Floyd cop made bond? He's out. The one that only had the 4 days on duty. He's out on bond right now, $750,000 bond.
My God.
He's out, and the other 3 are still in jail.
So nobody else has any other answers. No one's talking about, as Jim was pointing out, the general's comments was we need to give more money to the law enforcement community. They need to hire better people and blah, 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 blah. That's not going to do anything.
They've been saying that for years.
You can give them all the money in the world. What's going to stop them from continuing to do this if there's no accountability? You know, the real problem is, you know, I think it's less of a problem of quote-unquote racism in our country than it is the police and racism, and because it is from within the criminal justice system that this disparity takes place. I mean, if you have a racist living in your neighborhood, and you're a black couple family, you can deal with that as long as you can call the police, and they'll come out and stop something that's going to happen and not screw with you just because you're black. Like, if you remove that, if they could call the police and feel comfortable calling the police, it would change the dynamics in its entirety. So how do we get to the point where that can't happen? There's parts of the community that we're talking about that would never call the police. There's absolutely zero trust for the police, right?
Right. The first thing you have to do is remove all of these crimes or the criminalization of these victimless acts. I mean, as long as we are arresting people for simple drug possession, the police are not going to be trusted. And we have this conversation over and over again. I've never met an addict who's gone to jail or prison and come out and not still been an addict. So,
it doesn't work.
Right. So why would we keep doing it? And it goes for all the victimless crimes. And I get it. A lot of them aren't popular. We don't want to have to hear about it. But at the end of the day, these people don't belong in jail.
No. Let me play devil's advocate because... Rick.
No, I'm smoking.
I thought you were like, oh no.
Diamonds.
Okay. I was interacting with a prosecutor who was we were discussing this, and in a social setting. So we were like, and she said, "You don't really believe in the defunding of it?" And I said, "No." I explained that if you remove the governmental immunity, the training will get better. The people that they hire will get better. The oversight of the people get better. The reporting will get better. The getting the people out, not wanting them anymore, will get better.
And the courts are still going to have wide discretion. I mean, at the end of the day, the public appreciates that the police have a tough job to do. And they're going to have discretion. But you can't just say, oh my gosh, the police are going to have qualified immunity no matter what. Just like the prosecutor shouldn't have qualified immunity.
And speaking of the prosecutor, let's peel back the layer of the police here. And as I'll say again, I'll say it every week. Where are the prosecutors and the judges mentioned in this? The courts. That's where people are really getting a good fucking these days, is in the courts. I talked to 3 or 4 people today. Currently, the system's already resetting it now that the country's opening back up and the courts are opening back up. The system's going back to reset, and people are getting. I just talked to a woman today in Missouri that she's lost 8 of her kids.
Wow.
And the system down there has taken her kids, much similar to what goes on up here with the faith-based organizations stealing children and selling them. And
is that cannabis related, Steve?
What's that?
Cannabis related?
Oh, no, it was not. She, as a matter of fact, it was she was working, and the police there didn't think that her 14-year-old son at the time was old enough to be watching the other children.
Who the hell put them in charge of how? Oh.
She did. She told me
because they make money off each kid they take out of.
Yes, she did, and she knows this. You know, it's not like they're dealing with stupid people anymore that are ignorant to all of the system and that are just going to sit back and take it. Wow. Every person I talked to today with a problem with the system, they're all aware. There's not a lot of dummies out there anymore. People have access to information now like no other, and they know that they're calling bunco on the system. And that's why there's people out protesting in the streets all over the place. It's not because of this one isolated incident. This was the isolated incident was the scab that was peeled back off a wound that's been festering for well over 30 years.
Longer.
First of all, let me say this. I was trying to play devil's advocate, and there's no way I'm going to be able to say it that doesn't either sound offensive or kind of outlandish. But I was trying to make the argument that this prosecutor was presenting, which essentially was, it was in response to the defunding. Defunding. And I'm not advocating for defunding. I'm not advocating for removing government immunity or government immunity. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's still crime, there's still rapes and robberies and murders
and those are the crimes they should be focusing on.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Defund doesn't necessarily mean take all money away from police agencies. I think most people would agree there has to be a police presence. Defund essentially is a poorly named action that involves reallocating funds and redesigning how we fund police. To do exactly what you talked about, Michael, take away the policing for profit and remove the Bethany Christian Services and all the payments they make for confiscating children, which is essentially what they do.
And I was just going to make this point as I was arguing devil's advocate with myself, but the antagonist to any kind of police reform is that, oh, there's all this violence, and a lot of the violence is taking place in these neighborhoods, quote unquote, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, the number of shootings, quote unquote, are proportionally.
And what percentage of murders are solved in the state of Michigan?
Here's my point, though. What's overlooked oftentimes, arguing with that position, is that the war on drugs created the level of violence that we have.
The war on drugs did, yes.
So this is overlooked.
Yes.
Whatever that is that you're describing was birthed out of the war on drugs, and you're not gonna. You have to recognize that none of those individuals, whomever they may be, didn't come out of the womb wielding, an AK-47 looking to do a drive-by. That's not a thing that was even, But it requires us to take a bigger look at how we got here, really, and a lot of it goes back to all the reasons. It was the Nixon proclamation of wanting to lock people up because they're black, but instead, using marijuana as the method was
it's outrageous.
It took all of the steam out of the civil rights movement that was taking place right there. Any of the potential progress that took place instead did the absolute opposite and tore apart neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood that just decimated the community. And if there's a connection to those arguments of why, there is this kind of violence that comes out of these some of these neighborhoods that are being referred to as why you need policing, et cetera, it is directly a causal, right. Not even like.
Well, and you have to understand. I mean, if for anybody that has ever lived in the city of Detroit, and it's gotten a lot better as of late, I understand, but I mean, I can tell you stories of several violent events that I was in the vicinity for in the city of Detroit, where you'd call for the authorities and they weren't coming, and you have the folks that live in the city that engage with the police. They call for help, they don't come, or at least they weren't coming in time to be of any assistance. But when they do show up, they end up taking your brother or taking your husband or taking your kid. Well, of course, like it is impossible to develop a healthy relationship with the police when that is the dynamic. And,
hey, man, you guys, I'm old enough we can go back a few years here. We're going back to the 60s now, okay? In Pontiac. Pontiac was one of the first cities that instituted integrated busing, okay? And I went to a high school there called Pontiac Northern. And on the other side of Pontiac was Pontiac Central. You had the white Pontiac Northern against the black Pontiac Central High School. And they literally had to stop a high school basketball game because of a fight on the court, okay? But I'm going to go back to the school busing. People they had these big gate where the buses were parked, okay? They had these big steel gates that you're on rollers that you roll back and forth to open this huge fence. People chained themselves to the fence on this gate with big padlock and chains. They wrapped it around their bodies and chained themselves to the gates so that they could not open the gates up to take the buses out because they was going to take a kid that lived right next door to a school that he could go to, but they took him from this school and bust him across town. He only lived a half a block from the school, and they took him and bust him across town. And it was total chaos. I mean, it was something like you'd never seen. And I was young, and I went and watched how they removed those people from the fence, to get them out. They went in, sliced the tires. I mean, it was mean and nasty.
Yeah, they control the streets.
It's been going on, not just like you said, the last 30 years, it's been going on a lot longer than that.
The systemic racism that made Nixon's philosophies work.
Yeah. The empowered.
The systemic racism that made Nixonian policies work still exists today. And we see it in discrimination in housing, discrimination in education, discrimination even in the armed forces. So we talk about law enforcement right now because they're the most visible bullet wound in a bullet-ridden society, right? In a bullet-ridden body that is our society. But we got to patch the wounds as they appear. We can't fix them all at once. And this is one I think we can work on right now.
All right, good point. So,
We've got to take a break.
Take a break. We got, come back at these other topics. Maybe play the Jeff Frazier musical piece if that's someone in the fray here.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right, listen to Planet Green Trees, episode number 468. It's called Pig, Stand in Your Fat Face. We'll be right back.
Did you see the latest on Jessica?
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2020 Digital Hash Bash broadcast, hosted by Jamie Lowell. Jamie, you're out there, aren't you?
I'm here, hosted by all of us. I'm not taking the credit, for sure.
Nope. A whole big gang of us. I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker here. BDT Smoke Shop opened in 1973. They're the #1 head shop in the Southeast Michigan for more than a dozen years. This gentleman is the face of BDT Smoke Shop, but he's so much more, and I hope he gets a chance to explain that. Let me introduce Mr. Curtis Gore.
Curtis Gore.
I hear a bit of an echo.
They took him down, threw him on the ground.
Hey, Curtis.
Locked up.
My intro was so good, he didn't feel the need to stay around to say anything. Awesome!
Now, unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Curtis. Yay! Thank you.
Oh, boy. Poor internet connection, I think.
Right.
Just as we thought things were going well.
Over and over again. I was appalled after
You're doing great.
You in
We
the
can
background.
see you.
I could hear the intro.
We can hear you and see you. Keep going.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be on our first ever virtual Hash Bash over Skype. This has been fantastic. I think it's time to have a little fun. Can you still see me?
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
We got something big going on in the background here. Kind of chilling things out here at the Hazel Park BDTs. Well, it's obviously been a tough time for all of us, but we're going to do our best getting through.
You know, Curtis, it's difficult to know what is an essential service and what isn't. How's BDTs doing with this whole situation? Are you an essential service? Are you able to service customers?
No, we are, all our stores are shut down right now. But fortunately, with our gas and chemical company, Bumblebee Gas and Extraction, we've been actually servicing the community by providing isopropyl alcohol and non-denatured alcohol and actually turning that into a sanitizer. And we're still
so awesome.
Curtis, we may have lost you.
Aww.
That's a shame. If you notice Curtis's background, those of us who can still see him on freeze frame, he's at the Marijuana Museum, which is existing in Hazel Park. Jamie Lowell's been there before. That happens to be a great rack of magazines and other memorabilia, not just from Cheech and Chong, but other remnants of the era. It's quite an impressive place, Jamie.
Yeah, we did a Jazz Cabbage Cafe broadcast from there.
Sure did.
Helped to show it off and had a really great lineup of people there participating.
Yeah. That hat he was wearing itself deserves a story. That was pretty awesome. And a fog machine for the Hash Bash show? That's great.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Comorn of Comorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Comorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Yeah, I know exactly. Hi, we're back. We are back.
We're back.
We're back.
And we're back.
And you listen to Planet Green Trees. And we can continue talking, and our topics are shift to another. I think.
Let's shift.
Are we going to play some Frazier stuff right now? What do we got? We want to talk about what our general wanted to say to the feds that don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah, what's that about?
Let's see what that's about. The don't call us, we'll call you is the Attorney General has a message for the federal law enforcement agencies who want to help keep local demonstrators against the police brutality from spiraling out of control. Stand down, guys. We got this. A letter to what the AG's office described as an FBI request for information about the process to deputize federal agents to enforce Michigan state law in light of the current civil unrest across the country. Nessel's top deputy told the Bureau that peaceful protests taking place in Detroit and Michigan cities provide no justification for deputizing G-men. Introducing federal agents are familiar with state law and local issues into dynamic situations where emotions already run high could unnecessarily escalate.
You know what? Maybe the police would behave themselves if they had a federal officer alongside of them. Maybe they would think twice about making some overt actions.
Form a jurisdictional task force.
They brought in the prison bureau guards, and we're using.
Well,
them.
You don't want to bring those guys in.
They
I'm
were there.
talking like an FBI guy sitting next to you. As an officer, that's going to make you a little nervous and make sure you're doing all the things right. I would think. At least that would cross my mind if I was in those formations and I had an FBI agent or two augmenting us. I'm going to think twice about what I'm doing.
FBI agent even less accountable than anybody. It's not even like in the realm of being able to even bring a lawsuit against. You know that they have like absolute immunity. Federal agents.
Right, but those guys, I've met a lot of those FBI guys, and I don't think they're going to be getting into any funny business out on the line. No. That would be just my guess.
I certainly don't hear about any excessive violence when it comes to dealing with the FBI. I mean, well, I guess that's not fair. I mean, you've got instances like Waco where the FBI and ATF were involved.
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
Steve, just so I'm clear, the positive commentary about the FBI, in some ways, may be contradictory to the entire deep state theories that have been floating around. So they just want to be clear. We have a tough time reconciling here, but I understand your point you're making.
No.
You would like to think of the FBI and some of its agents as being stand-up guys. And that they're the backbone of what would be just, but that's not always the case. There's a
That'd be nice.
criminal industrial complex, there's a military industrial complex, right? They've certainly, every time our government has gone places, invaded places, done something, they had involvement, more likely than not, right? They would have been involved with some kind of stirring it up, agent provocateur, every coup d'etat that's ever taken place, if not in the same. Anyways, so I mean, I'd say they're the loyalists to the federal government. They may even be their own. You know, they operate in the dark with less accountability than most. I mean, they have the agency, but there's certainly things that go on that are.
You are correct, sir. But I think they're up to shenanigans on different levels other than use of force.
Yeah. And I do think
use of force isn't their problem.
See, I think they actually have and I'm just talking, there's no basis of this, but they're purviewing the social temperature to a certain degree. You know what I mean? And they can and will try to influence it to what they're perceived, which is probably, law and order. To some degree, you know what I mean, and they may be realizing. I mean, maybe they take the position they're realizing that in order to. I mean, who are they going to control? Even if they, as an entity, have their own individual brain, think that we got to let them burn off some steam before we get things back to normal. We got to do some stuff, let them protest, and by bringing in, military like the president wants to, is going to cause a terrible reaction. But that may be a legitimate conversation that's taking place.
And one thing I can guarantee you is the military out on those lines, in those riot formations, are going to have a hell of a lot more discipline and restraint than the police officers. That I can guarantee you because, see, senior airman or private so-and-so has his staff sergeant supervisor 3 guys down from him. And if he screws up, he's going to correctional custody at the end of it. And
so here goes. So let me explain what Steve's saying. Steve has taken the position, I think, that the principles of the military hierarchy that exists in terms of rank and order and chain of command and accountability with real type of military courts that are available outside of the civil, but within their own that have real penalties. Is a way to think about this and bringing that into the police culture, the police institution, is a possible solution to some of the things that we're talking about. Now,
we need to control the agencies, not the people that the agencies protect.
And Steve takes his
position. The 2 suggestions you just made, which is add more cops and more militarization of the police, are exactly opposite of what the people on the streets are asking.
Well, I just want to say I didn't say add more cops.
Well, adding more federal agents inside, so that wherever one
I
cop
didn't
goes,
say
two
add
people
more
have to
federal
go.
agents. I said, maybe if the FBI were to send some agents in to augment police forces to help out during this thing, maybe the officers along these riot control formations and lines, if they got an FBI agent standing next to them, maybe they'll think twice before they give this guy an extra lick or they go out and they forcefully assault somebody along the line.
I thought you were referring to like a patrol car situation where you'd want them
No,
to like ride
absolutely not. I think
you're talking about on the protest lines.
That's what I'm thinking. They're advising the Attorney General that they'd be coming in and being able to augment if needed due to the civil unrest.
Well, hold on. But also, Steve, you were suggesting that the military, in a mirroring the duties and responsibilities of them having guns and being responsible for in control of the ability to use force, wherever it may be, in military situations, but scaling it back and what goes into that hierarchy within the military, the consequences if you fall out of line, the oversight and rank and cause and purpose of mission, all of those things create some of the accountability you're talking about.
Yes, and I'm not saying that we need to militarize the police to control the people. We need to put more of a military disciplinary structure within each law enforcement agency in order to control the officers in that agency so they behave appropriately, so they don't use excessive force. And when they do, there is immediate consequences to those actions. And that is what I'm talking about.
And the one thing that is in the minutia that has to be pointed out, which I think to try to make your point, is that this is, you're describing what's akin to the military police. In other words, the officers, there's rules that they operate on, there's 12, 15, whatever they may be, and if they violate them, there's a court to be brought up in charges and a whole system. But I would say this, there's, you know, we're talking about, if we're talking about the entirety of the military, because I don't know if the best case can be, if there's a case that can be made for those officers that have seen action. They've been subject to neighborhood, you know, military actions where they're, you know, killing in the context of war, which are different rules. If we want them on the streets in neighborhoods, we may not want that. They may not be the best scenario.
Well, I'm not saying the military. I'm saying a military-like agency that controls its people with the focus on protecting the people in their community.
Steve is saying introduce true accountability into the police departments with leadership that will hold people accountable.
For instance, I worked at.
But how do you do that? How do you do that if they're not civilly liable?
You don't. It's not. There's no incentive. There's zero. If there's no negative consequence if you go sideways, then it's not going to end well.
So where I worked at the Canton Police Department, we had a pretty good military-style structure there. For following rules, there was discipline instilled. Our chief, director of public safety at the time, was a Marine Corps veteran, did time in Vietnam. He believed in good, sound discipline within his agency, and he had it. Because you know what? If you didn't wear your hat out on the road, you were getting rode up. And you had to go pay a visit to the chief for something as simple as just not wearing your hat. And you know what he used to say? You know what? If you can't get them to wear the hats, they're really going to spin out of control. So we started there in that agency with hats. I didn't like wearing a hat. I thought they were big and stupid looking. But we had to wear them, and you better wear it, or you were getting rode up. And if we had each and every police agency with that level of leadership and that type of disciplinary structure within the organization, we would have a lot less of this. We didn't have too many use of force issues, excessive use of force issues at Canton. And when we had them, we dealt with them immediately. And I think I told you the story about my buddy I had to write up. I don't even think he had intent. I know he didn't have intent on slamming that guy's on the thing. It was the motion of the way the whole disarray was going, and because he was in cuffs, his head caught the side of that table. But because he was in the custody of my officer was responsible for his health, and he got injured while this officer was responsible for him. He had to be written up. I wrote him up. It went before the chief. We had a thing. The chief, you know, affirmed the write-up. And he got at least a letter of reprimand. I think he may have even gotten a day off for that, if I remember correctly.
So here's the thing. So
that's what we need in police agencies.
Well, there's two things you're talking about. You're talking about the crossing the quote-unquote blue line, because there's a sense of team, loyalty, in the development of us versus them. And I'm saying to you that for every one instance, honest Steve Miller police officer that probably maybe took shit, maybe scowled at by your or maybe they all respected you or should have respected you. But nevertheless, there's the ability to look the other way. That's number one. So you need that.
Oh, there is.
And there's got to be a reward in some way or some incentive to do that as opposed to the other. Secondly, that if it's not that, the facts, if there's not someone reported, how does someone get those facts when everybody else is not going to be reported? That's two. Number three is that even with that said, the ultimate punishment for that, even without any intent, the negligence, let's just say it's negligence, right? Mm-hmm. If it is his responsibility, what does that really mean? It means that, and he may have caused it, right? And the suspect, but he did end up cracking his head open, bleeding, hospital. Is that something that would be potentially, You know what? If there was civil liability for that, there would have been some other technique that was put into place long before he got into that situation, even walked by that corner.
Oh, you
see
could
what I'm
be
saying?
right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They would have cut that area out to give them more accessibility. They would have said, we're going to restrain over here. We're going to put them over. We're not going to put them in cuffs. Maybe, I don't know. There'd be a totally different way that they'd go about it. There'd be psychological studies. There'd be ways to how to diffuse these situations, as opposed to brute force. Because brute force, which they have a monopoly on and are allowed to and trained to take down those situations, right? I mean, the point is that I want to recognize what you're saying as being significant and how it should be the norm, and that we probably wouldn't be where we are right now, but still, the final piece of there having to be some accountability, even for negligence.
But I guarantee you, Michael, if
to eliminate qualified immunity. Michael, the final piece is to eliminate qualified immunity for the police so that they can be held civilly responsible for these acts.
Let me just comment that I've been saying this
for weeks.
For 4 episodes. 4 rants. You
Where
can't
you-
just
where
jump
you
right
been,
in
Alan?
and say that. What's going on?
I didn't hear it tonight.
You just come up with that idea? What have you been listening
I didn't
to?
hear
You
the
listen to
magic
Planet
words,
Green Trees?
qualified immunity. Qualified immunity. Why don't defendants have qualified immunity when they go to court and they don't know the law? They say
Asked
ignorance
and
of the law is
answered,
no
Alan.
excuse.
Asked and answered. Back to what we were
Alan,
talking
good
about.
faith exception we beat the crap out of. The reasonable mistake of law we beat the crap out of. And qualified immunity, welcome to the boat. Okay.
Welcome to the boat, Alan.
I know that
Glad
you didn't
you're
watch
here.
last week's show. That's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I know you've been busy on Zooming and happy hours, whatever.
Catching them in the Zoom room.
I don't even know what I was saying now.
The liability for negligence, I think, would change all of this.
Well, I think what I was going to close with is that if every police agency operated as we did at the Canton Police Department, there would be a lot less of this. And we were an anomaly. People used to tell us, fuck, I don't want to come work at your place. You guys got to wear hats. People would say that. You guys actually get written up over there and get days off and shit. I mean, these were honest conversations I had with members of other agencies. That Canton had the rep. Like, and you worked there, you were under the fucking iron fist. And
see, part of the problem, though, about being under the iron fist is that those people are not willing to speak out when they see things that aren't right. I mean, what we need to do is to encourage officers to be able to have honest dialogue when they see things that are violations. And when we talk about military-style discipline, that discourages people from doing that. So it's important.
So then we have what we have now, Rick, which is a mess of a police department system, and nobody knows what to do, and the system sucks, and they've been fucked over so many people that now people are protesting in the streets. That is one part of it, because we've lost control of the police. You know what they used to tell us at the Canton Police Department is that we need to enforce all the rules because we can't let the inmates run the asylum, is what they used to refer to it as. So what we have in a lot of these police agencies, based on discussions of people's disbelief of how disciplined we had to be at Canton, is most of the departments everywhere, the inmates are running the asylum, and this is what you get.
Meaning the police are running the police officers themselves and their behavior. All right.
Where in our department, we had a command structure, chief, captain, lieutenants, sergeants, and we followed that.
Think about this.
And I was going to, like when my buddy who got his head hit on the car, and I had to write him up, I was getting pressure from the sergeants and lieutenants that you better write him up, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble yourself.
Okay, let's talk. How about let's go back to the 75-year-old guy that gets pushed over. Ever remember that video?
Yeah, it was terrible.
There's one of the officers bends down to try to help him.
Right.
And he's kind of pushed on by the other guy who calls in off his radio for backup.
Yeah.
So nobody else stopped. He said there's somebody in control there, and nobody was writing anybody up for that. And that was all okay. And then when they went after the two, they all stepped down saying, nope. See what I'm saying? So I that means that either means that was acceptable, and every single one of them.
That was acceptable. Absolutely. To every one of those guys in that unit, that was acceptable, and that should scare you. What else is that unit
This is what I'm saying. Once I have my stuff on, and I have my helmet, my mask, and I got my gloves on and my gear. When someone walks up to me, I can do whatever I want. I monopolize violence. I got a weapon in my hand.
And they don't think the rules apply to them. They think it's a free-for-all, a lot of them, when they get in that groupthink mentality situation out on these lines.
That would be a reason, if there was one, I would think, that you would want to be a police officer. Oh, I can't wait for the protest. I go out and beat the shit out of people with my gun. You know what I mean?
If you're psychotic.
Yeah, I'd never met anybody who, okay, let's go run out and jump on these lines. Riot control is terrible.
It's because I'll tell you what happens. Nobody really wants to do it. But when they get there and they lose, they're either in fear. First of all, I know we're railing on police. It's been policy year after year after year in the training and the management and from the top to the bottom that produces this thinking. It's not, these officers don't go into there thinking they're going to, it's evolved. They have to go through schools. Certain mindsets are selected to the police force. Others are not, right? Isn't there a whole philosophy about the passing the entrance exam and the types of questions they ask you of whether you you follow rules or have a conscience to a certain degree? Isn't that kind of the way the thing bends? If you're
there's all different kinds of entrance things, but for each agency I worked for, I had to take a psychological personality questionnaire and go over it with the psychologist.
But there's certain answers that, if you took a random group of 10 regular people and subjected them to the police exam, they're not all going to pass. They're not all going to be invited in. Am I right?
Probably not.
Hey, Steve, if you want to be a cop, is there a certain amount of hours that you have to put in before you are one of us? The only reason I'm asking this question is I've seen where someone posted that to be a cosmetologist, a hairdresser, it was like 1,500 hours that they had to put in, and to be a police officer, it was 840 hours to become. That's
probably how many hours the police academy is, and that's all directed by MCOLs.
2 months or something? Is that?
All the academies are the same. They're 12 weeks, unless they've increased their time more. But it was back when I went through, all the academies were standardized throughout the state, and they all had to fall under the MCOL's rules and guidelines. And unless you, as a academy, wanted to do more, which I think the state police adds a few weeks to theirs, and they do more stuff, so they go over and above what MCOL's requires. You may have, Flint used to have an academy, and, who knows, depending on their budget, they may have done just basically what they had to do, what the state required,
So you're saying 4 months then is...
4 months is the minimum, I think.
Okay.
And that's an MCOL standard, however many hours that is, they probably have it listed in hours, I would think. And,
let me just point out that conservation officers and a lot of non-police officers now have complete full police authority and powers to arrest.
They always have. The motor carrier officers that work for the state, they are certified police officers. The conservation officers all over the state, they are certified police officers.
They will arrest you.
They go to police academies. They're all certified and fall under the same standards as all the other police officers.
The state of Michigan...
The state security officers, I think maybe even the guys who protect the buildings of the state, I think they even have to go through an academy maybe.
The Border Patrol has jurisdiction over the whole state of Michigan. Did you know that?
Jeff Frazier gave me indication of that one time about because of we're a border state.
Well, listen, since 9/11, there's been a huge increase in military policing, right? They're getting all this extra border / under that, and that has created this entire evolution of a much more militarized police force, better tools of the trade. But I want to get back to this other idea of
tanks and Humvees.
Yes, all that. But to Steve, because he is offering up his background and expertise. But there is a thing called the police entrance exam, right? And I've heard people say, I wanted to be a police officer, but I couldn't pass the exam. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's a thing. So
yes, there is. It's a test through MCOLs. You have to do a written and physical test.
Okay, but if you agree that you take 10 random people.
Yeah, not everybody's going to pass.
Why? What's the what? Because it's not that they don't have a level of intelligence. They just answer the questions wrong. So what are those questions seeking out? Because this may be part of the issue. You know, because I mean, I gotta say,
I couldn't even remember what the questions were.
Can I make a proposal? I think it's probably to do with who's going to follow orders and who's going to be a free thinker to a certain degree, right? Because I mean, if I was picking a military team, I don't want anyone like that's going to yap back. Right? You want a command chain that's going to listen?
No, you want to pick the right people that will work with you.
But it's the MCOL, so it's who gets in, right? So there's got to be a certain... Right. If I was going to take the test and you're going to give me some tips, what would you tell me? Don't answer the way you normally do. Come on. I'd say, why? You know the answer to that, Steve. What is it? Come on. What is it?
I don't even know what questions are on the test, so I wouldn't even know how to tell anybody to prepare at this point.
Could I pass the test, do you think?
You could pass.
You think so?
Yeah. I think you could, yeah.
If I answered honestly?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple choice questions.
I'm terrible at multiple choice, by the way. That's my word. I'm much better at essay. Much better at essay. A lot of words I can get out there fast. I'm a good fast writer typer. No, I'm kidding. It may be just that you got to be a multiple choice mind. There are people that
could be.
There are people.
I do well on multiple choice tests.
Yes. You know why? Because they give you 4 choices. You can usually eliminate the first 2 right off the bat. Boom, boom.
Yep.
And then it's a guess, 50-50 on the other one.
Yeah.
You feeling lucky? Do you think I got 4 bullets? Did I shoot it? No, I'm kidding.
Now the LSAT is not that way. The LSAT I did terrible on.
The LSAT's multiple choice.
Oh, that's horrible test.
I got a speeding ticket on the way to the LSAT. I remember that.
Probably because you were running late. No,
of course I was.
No.
And when I told the officer that I was on my way to the LSAT, you know what he did?
He probably doubled your ticket.
Took more time.
Yeah, of course
30 minutes. I was even later.
It's like, what are you going to be, son? Oh, an attorney?
Just kidding. I can cook it. It's fine. So I want to know what's on the test. I want to hear some questions right now. You'd answer those. Cause I mean,
there's books out there that help you prep.
Are you thinking about changing your profession?
No, I'm just curious because this could be part of the. You know, if you got this many people that want to get into this tunnel and they can't get in, and these are all people that are. You know, and
I mean, if I would have been prepared, I probably could have thought of. I used to sit in on the interviews, and I could go over some of the interview questions with you, but like I got to sit and think about that for a minute. And
it's going to take a minute.
Is there like an IQ assessment?
No, other than the entrance test you take through MCOLs, and then
what do you have to pass it?
You have to pass the MCOLs test.
It's 70%.
I can't remember. I think it's 70. Yeah, 70 or 80.
Most of the testing and training after that do not have a test that's like when people go to classes to get other. I mean, they don't have to take a test. I mean, this has been my experience.
We took classes and you have tests, and if you were falling behind and not testing, if you had a few bad tests, you may not.
What are we talking? Are we talking about for what?
The academics involved in the police academy.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. After you pass.
Okay.
When they go and do training for additional stuff, that's usually just certification for.
If there's a certification on something, then yeah, you usually have to take a test at the end. But if you're just going to an informational class, you may not have to take a test at the end. But
the canine training.
Oh,
well, they go through practical.
Yeah,
it's all practical.
Yes, but there's no. But that's that's like the dog trainer following you around saying like that's what's going on.
Or you mean to get.
Who gets to be the dog guy? Who gets to have a dog?
That's what I'm saying. The police.
I got to select
the police the dog police.
I actually that was my unit at Canton. I was in charge of the canine unit.
Yeah.
And I actually got to pick. I think I got to pick the 2 of them.
The dogs.
The kind. No, the handler.
Okay.
I let the handlers go pick the dog.
Sure, I got it.
I'm not.
But that whole training and oversight is by. I don't know. There's no written exams. It's all in the field, right? I don't know because it's
So we have a canine position open up, and we would then post it. Say you have 2 or 3 weeks to put in your resume.
Because they have to get trained if they're not canine previously, right?
Right. So you have to select them.
Do you guys hire from within only? Did you?
Yes.
Only from within.
Only from within. From
you never bring in some other fired canine from another county.
No. Oh, you mean to if if we didn't have one of ours working that night,
sure,
and we needed one, we would call
Yeah.
over to Westland or Van Buren or you know, they all trained together, so there was like a unspoken rule that if one of them, if we didn't have anybody in Canton, you know, the other guys didn't have a problem coming in and covering for them if we needed a canine.
Did you have a case like that down in Trenton, wasn't it? Where they had to call in, they called in another.
No, it's St. Clair County. St. Clair County.
Because they didn't have
Yeah,
a, they
right.
didn't have a cop. They didn't have a cop. With
They
them.
have a canine guy that they call at the all traffic stops.
All traffic
They call him
stops?
Mr. Probable Cause.
Every traffic stop?
Every traffic stop, he shows
Really?
up, the dog hits, they got probable cause. Someone's getting arrested, someone's car's getting taken. It's quite, in fact, he's,
It's a good racket.
The dog
a
will
good-
give you probable cause every time.
Every time.
Every time.
but I
They
understand.
name the dog probable cause?
Yeah.
Yes,
PC.
that's exactly. But it's what's interesting now is I understand that much of the training regarding canines has moved to a much more sophisticated level. That they're actually able to delineate now between THC and the amount of THC. As to
Really?
when, yep, that's what they're doing. The dogs are like
That's some dog.
AI
That's a
dogs.
sniffer.
AI dogs.
These dogs
That's
are
one heck of a
fantastic.
sniffer.
Advanced infantry.
Artificial intelligence.
You know, the dogs are quite amazing, though, when you hear about, like, and I got educated about dogs from our canine handlers. And it's the dog's nose can, like, pick up. Like, you may smell an apple pie. Now, the dog's nose can pick that all apart and smell the cinnamon, the apple, the crust, the sugar. So the dogs, I don't know how we know this, because what dog has spoken to somebody that has told them this? But apparently somebody has figured this out, that a dog's nose can and brain can pick apart all the different smells within something.
As a dog lover, I say this with compassion. The canine handlers are weirdos, generally speaking, because they would kill you for their dog. Just you know, and their dog is
Oh, that's their
and
life.
I get the bond
They
of a
work
dog
together,
and human.
they
I get
live
it. I
together,
got it. I
they're-
got it. So only someone that's in that mindset would tell you, I know this about my dog. I know. I just know it. My
You
dog.
don't have to be a cop to feel that way. I'd kill you if you mess with my dog now.
I got
That dog's my son. Or my daughter.
All right. Although, that's fine. But
Yeah.
under the law, I think you can. I mean, according to the Family Guy that I was watching yesterday, like talking to Brian. Brian, I could throw you over this bridge and nobody would care.
Is
and
that where you're-
there wouldn't be any legal consequences.
Is that where you're seeking legal advice these days, as Family Guy?
Usually.
No.
Usually.
That's good to know.
Why not?
Maybe, maybe it'd be animal cruelty, but
Hey Steve, don't those dog handlers, don't they speak in German or something too, so that you don't know what they're saying to their dog?
That used to be an old training tactic, and they've gotten away from that.
Because people learned it.
Yeah.
Is that why
I don't
or
know.
what?
I just don't think
No.
that they. I mean, that dog. I mean, if one of those dogs, if I went up and tried to tell that dog what to do, it's not going to listen to me anyway.
and also when you're getting arrested and a gun pulled out on you and a dog ripping on your arm, to hear German being yelled out is probably to some maybe a little
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah, it might
I
toss
think
them
that
over
was
the
just that was a typical overreaction of human beings that occurs from time to time, and so probably at some point in time that some handler came up with the idea that we should speak to the dogs in German, so then if anybody else tries to give the dog a command, it won't listen. But as they're telling you that the dog will only listen to you anyhow. So
Why German? Why not French?
I
Spanish?
think maybe
And does that not lend itself to this whole terrible perception of?
You know the answer.
If you want the dog to hit on a car, you just say zig, and that dog starts barking and digging and going like crazy. And
zig.
Yeah, anything. I mean, you could not necessarily that, but you know, it could be Heil.
what they
or
do is
whatever.
It could be any word is
Heil.
what he's saying.
Zig
It could be-
Heil.
Zig Heil.
So listen to me. The way that so the idea being that like this German training, they said start with Mein Kampf, read that in German, and then you train the dog. I'm just kidding. It's like it's funny.
Can the dogs tell the difference between hemp and marijuana?
Yeah, that's what they're training on. I'm kidding, Alan. By the way, Alan, you should know this. There's a jury instruction about canines, isn't there? It says, whatever you've heard, You should understand, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that a dog is not a human witness. And when a police officer testifies about that, you are to give great caution to what that particular officer said about his observations of the dog. Right? Something to that effect.
I mean, where the police went wrong with dogs is turning them into drug dogs, because otherwise these dogs can be very useful
for cadaver searching, things like that.
Cadaver searching.
Seeing eye dogs.
You get a fresh home invasion just occurred, and you know that the guy just left there. You get that canine. If you get a good tracking canine, you get on that track and you get some guys. I mean, they're
through like a neighborhood and stuff.
Yeah, and we've gotten a few guys on tracks, and those canines do have some good use. They bomb dogs. That's a good use for a dog, don't you think?
For sure.
Anything but the narcotics.
Although they're risky to the dog, because the dog could get injured.
I've read stories and I've talked to some people in law enforcement that there's actually been dogs now trained to detect electronic media, and they're catching child predators using this, and they're finding child predators putting like USB drives in their walls and hiding these devices, and these dogs find them. It's incredible.
Excellent.
Wow.
Incredible.
You know that some dogs just found those two bodies out in Idaho.
Of that mother?
Yeah, the mother.
Oh, they did?
Yeah,
Wow.
they identified the two kids. That's her two kids, and the dogs found them.
So
on this guy's property. Yeah, cadavers.
We had a canine on our base in Saudi Arabia, and
what kind of dog?
It was a German Shepherd.
A pug?
And or it might have been a Malinois, because the Air Force was using those too. But hers was a German Shepherd. I do remember. I do have the picture, and she was a very nice handler.
Was it bomb sniffer or what was it?
Yeah, bomb dog. Yep. No, we didn't have narcotics dogs over in Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm, Jim.
No need.
No.
Well, I think we should probably take a break because we have to come back. We got to cover the redemption stuff. We haven't heard enough from Jamie, Rick, Alan has been trying. We want to hear more from those guys, and
we've got these word papers here that we've got to go over.
Oh yeah, we got to do our.
Right.
Steve's got to do
Diamonds.
his review.
Diamonds.
Can we talk about that old Israeli cannabis we were supposed
when we
to talk
come back,
about
Alan's gonna talk about the Middle East. We're going to Jeff.
We're going to Jeff.
And then we'll come back and do some more stuff.
Maybe.
Yep. And then Alan gets some attention.
Maybe.
And Rick and Jimmy. Okay. We'll be right back.
Here's Michael Camorn with more Planet Green Tree.
It's a jungle out there. Sort of hang confusion everywhere. People don't seem to care. Well, I do hate who's in charge here. It's a jungle out there. Poison in the very air we breathe. You know it's in the water that you drink. Well, I do, and it's amazing. People say I'm crazy cause I worry all the time. If you paid attention, you'd be worried too. Better pay attention, or the world you love so much might just kill you. I could be wrong now, but I don't think so. Cause it's a jungle out there. It's a jungle out there. It's a jungle out there. Violence and danger everywhere. It's brother against brother, pounding on each other like they were legionnaires. It's a jungle out there. Yeah, it's a jungle in here too. You got a tapping on your phone, the microphone, the camera, thinking anything you do. Call me paranoid, but as the saying goes, even paranoia is an enemy. I'm not afraid of living, I'm not the crazy one. They're afraid of you and me. I could be wrong now, but I don't think so. Cause it's a jungle out there. Yeah, it's a jungle out there. It's a jungle out there. Even the cops are scared today. So if you see a uniform, do exactly what they say, or make a run for it. I'm only kidding with you, 'cause it's a jungle out there. It's a jungle out there. I was upper middle class, I had a yard of carpet grass. Worked back home 9 to 5, paid my union dues. But the chef came one day and he took it all away. Left me without anything to lose. They forfeited my car, they found some sugar in a jar. Told me it was probably suspicion of a crime. The other day I saw it being driven by the law, and them boys in the back was gonna do some time. Well, forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play, without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the Deep East Texas Task Force blues. Took my minibar and then they seized my VCR. They could be misused to watch a nasty video. They took away my kitchen all the time. My wife was bitching that it wasn't nothing but oregano. They said my herbal tea might cause a sinful ecstasy. Told me it could only lead to doing something hard. Took my ass to jail, they took my wife, paid my bail, took my double wide down to the county yard. Forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play, without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the Oakland County Task Force blues. Without a cotton picking thing loose, I got them Oakland County Task Force blues.
Yeah!
And now I'm back on it. What's this? In the face of injustice, we stand proud and tall. Police misconduct drives us up the wall. We come in all shapes and sizes, fighting to be free. Jack-booted thuggery serves to charge our battery. We are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass. We do all the hard work at attention all the time. We may be rigid, but our justice is sublime. We vibrate with intensity, electric in our cause. When the cops don't have a warrant and they violate our laws, we are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass.
Nice.
I woke up today, I heard him say, somebody's building a wall. Round up the rift, keep out the raft, make us all safe overall. serve and protect from the Mexican menace. It'll be 20 feet tall. I'm thinking about heading out west of the Rockies or somewhere south of the wall. Some people are pissed, they're making a list of all the Muslims in town. They're taking away the right to be gay, keeping the feminists down. Freedom and fame, it's a video game out at the Pleasantville Mall. Won't you come with me out west of the Rockies or somewhere south of the wall? I heard them confirm that people infirm who smoke marijuana are bad. We'll throw them in jail, deny them their bail, and keep all the money they had, and use it to build an edification, neatly dividing us all. Won't you come with me out west of the Rockies or somewhere south of the wall? Maybe they'll bury me west of the Rockies or somewhere south of the wall.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Don't get busted without a good attorney. Check out the new show, Kicking It with Camoran, with your new hosts, Earl and Michael Camoran. Hi, I'm Earl Carruthers. I have been a client of Michael Camoran's, and if you are with an attorney that you don't feel comfortable with, I do want to let you know that there are good attorneys out there. I personally went through quite a few different attorneys before I came Camoran. I could save you some time and some pain. Camoran is truly a loving and kind-hearted attorney and passionate about the law. And he won't just make you take a plea. He will definitely see all the options and let you make a good choice from there. But if you do need a new attorney, or if you're looking for a good attorney to start off with, check out Camoran. Hi, I'm Earl, and want to just let you know, I know how it is to trying to go through and find an attorney. It's kind of sometimes it's just a shot in the dark. You don't know. You don't trust them. You're not sure how they're going to fight your case if you're just another number. But I do want to reach out and let you know that Comore definitely is a solid attorney. He leads with passion, with care, and he doesn't just lay down. And he doesn't just let you take a plea. Doesn't let you take a plea. He is there for you all the way. He'll give you all the options. And if you need a fighter, he's there for you.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
The system is built to herd you into pleas of guilty. There's a herding mentality. Follow the leader over there, jump into the river, try to swim across and not get eaten by the alligators. It happens every day in courts across the state of Michigan. There are ways to avoid this. There are issues that can be identified. There's motions that can be filed, evidentiary hearings that can be had, and ways to fight back and push back. Don't get herded into the Mirror River. Don't get eaten by an alligator. Don't get herded. Call me before you plea. Attorney Michael Comore.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
We are back.
We're back.
We are back. Planet Green Trees, 468. Pig stand in your fat face. Without further ado, we're going to talk about Redemption Products, also known as the Giggles.
It gets Amanda giggling, that's for sure.
This would not properly be introduced if it wasn't for Jamie Lowell and Rick also to help out here to tell the tale. But this, if we had Ryan Bassor on a few weeks ago, he was discussing his product line that he's his brand getting out there. And just recently, I think they started releasing the diamonds and whatnot. But each of his, Jamie, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead, explain some of the really important aspects of Brian's brand and the message that he's trying to get out.
Tell us about some diamonds.
Well, the diamonds are one of many products that he has in his product line called Redemption. A lot of great stuff. Pre-rolls, we reviewed some pre-rolls on Jazz Cabbage on Tuesday. The answer was they were awesome. And today we're going to look at some of the diamonds, but there's a whole line of stuff going on, and some of the proceeds go to those who have been affected by the war on cannabis in many different ways, and that's important to Ryan. It's one of the things he was motivated by because of his unfortunate experiences. He talked about that pretty heavily on that show a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, and people like me, former law enforcement, are willing to pay 10% extra to go towards the cause as well. So if I ever come to the Tawas Botanical Company, which is what our diamonds are here tonight, courtesy of, we're going to do an on-air demo. They are provided by the Tawas Botanical Provisioning Center. Thank you very much to Jamie and that group there. And, you know, I'm very nice packaging. We're going to do a full review on her. Very nice packaging, really cool. We dug in. The product looks nice. It's got very nice aroma to it. Did you get a whiff of that, Jim? Other than little whiff. Yeah. Very nice, don't you think, Michael? Very nice ambiance. And
Jamie, are
aroma
diamonds supposed to smell? Is the question.
Smelly diamonds.
I think the ones that I looked at had a pretty nice essence.
Yes, absolutely. It's a.
Is there a difference between essence and smell?
There is. There definitely is.
So is that more like a powdery, or what would you describe that as for the viewers at home?
It looks like a powdery. It almost looks like sugar.
Okay.
It's crystalline. Crystalline.
It's mostly illegal when you're holding it that, using it that way.
So
But yes, go ahead.
It looks mildly, highly illegal, I guess.
Looking.
But it is not. It is-
Would this be probable cause, Michael?
Michael.
For anything?
It might be reason for kind
If
of
there
a
was
second look.
Secondary
I'll tell you what,
inspection.
if there was qualified immunity was removed, if qualified immunity was removed, and the officer's entry in thinking that was probable cause, and there was some liability for them being wrong, and upon the arrest, seizure of that, taking it, labbing it, and said, "Oh, it's just THC," right?
Right.
Then it wouldn't be. If there's no qualified immunity, see what I'm saying? If they were subject, like the decision to get in there, oh, I just take it. It looks
That
nefarious.
is what has occurred
That's
for
what I'm saying.
years.
They're gonna take
That is
it.
what has occurred for years because, and I've witnessed it.
No,
and
judge throws out
I
a-
may have done it a time or two
Yeah,
myself.
you did.
Where
I'm just kidding.
you
He dipped his
going through
finger
the
in
car
it,
and
went
I'm
rubbing on
not
his
sure if this
thumbs.
is illegal or not, so I'm just gonna take it.
We're taking it.
That occurred. That is another element of why people are so pissed off nowadays
I'm just
because
saying-
of shit like that. Absolutely.
Ty
That's
goes
a
to
case
the,
that he had
you know,
over there. What's his face? They just came in the house and took it, and took his kid with him.
Max.
Yeah, they came in. They just came in his house and said, "Well, I
Yeah.
suspect this."
All right,
to be
well,
They
we're-
can do whatever they
Yeah.
want. So you got your powder over there, which
Yes.
is diamonds, but it also can come with some sauce in there, which is
Little
terps. But this
sauce.
particular one from
From
Redemption is just
Just
the
the,
crystal
crystals.
itself.
Yes.
Okay.
And very nice odor.
If I was a cop, I'd say it looks to me like something that you might want to snort.
Do you-
Yeah, well,
and
he'd
that's
go-
what I was just going to ask Jamie.
Question:
Take
Can
a
you
little look,
snort
see?
diamonds, Jamie?
You
Yes,
can.
I think there's only one way to find out, Michael.
You
right now,
can.
let's.
But
does
it's not gonna
does
be-
one snort diamonds? Not that I'm looking.
Would it work?
Would it?
You want to apply heat to it, or it doesn't work, baby.
Okay.
It's not going to get you high till you decarb
Till
it,
you
but you can,
decarb it,
in
okay.
fact, snort it if you want. It's
Well,
not going to do anything.
I think it's important we
It's
get
gonna-
that out there
it's gonna be
because
It's got to be heated.
because you know what? There might be a few people out there that might want to try and snort it.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
I've
Don't do it.
already
Don't
heard
do
of
it.
Waste
people
of
doing
money.
Don't do
that.
it.
Yes,
It was a
I've heard
bad
people
joke
doing
that
Definitely
has
don't.
gone on too
Do
long.
not
And definitely
snort.
don't
Don't use it as a
snort
suppository necessarily either.
So,
Do
Kind of a
not
more traditional
snort
way.
it.
and, we are going to
What is
give
the temperature of
this
that
a
area?
try.
Because if it's above 220,
So you got to get
Just
the
kidding.
temperature. There's some kind of temperature.
Temperature.
Looks like
It looks like red on the hammer of the...
so you got your little bucket there,
Yes,
like
the
Steve can
bucket.
show you there,
Okay,
and
that's
he's
the
gonna
bucket.
heat
I was
that.
calling it a hammer, Jim.
He's gonna heat that little
We're
sucker
going
up.
to heat her up. Here we go.
Supposed to turn like a nice little red color and get nice and hot. People can also use an
Red
electronic
hot.
nail.
That's the temp.
Red like
For
the
those
flames
watching,
that
I
would
just
emit
wanna
from Bill
be clear.
Cheney, Steve.
Steve is over the age of 21.
Absolutely.
Is he?
And I am
just
no
read.
longer an officer,
So
so
you
I can do this freely.
Would an officer be allowed to engage in that activity?
Probably not. They would
And the
have a
substance-
problem with it.
The substance he is about to imbibe is marijuana or marijuana equivalents.
All right, she's
So you see
she's
how it's
fired
nice
up. It's
and
nice
red,
and hot.
but you wanna let it cool down just a smidge while he's getting his little dab
And
ready.
I am putting a chunk of diamond in there.
That's right.
Who's in line behind him for the testers?
We just
we got a
pass
social
that
distance.
sucker right
All
around.
right, there she goes,
Careful
boys.
of the hotness
Here
in
we
the
go. Here we go.
Okay.
You got to sip it.
Yeah, put a carb on there and get.
Put a carb on there and sip it.
Not to be confused with carbohydrate.
No, carbohydrates are bad. Carb cap.
Very
good.
smooth on the dabbing. Although maybe we were coughing a little bit earlier because we were hitting it too hard.
And I think the nail was too hot. That can
That could do it.
sometimes happen when your nail
That
is
would
too hot,
explain it.
folks.
But that was just a very pleasant dabbing experience.
Do most dispensaries, when they sell concentrates to be dabbed, give instructions for temperature, Jamie? Or does the botanical?
Is that standard
garden?
operating procedure, Jamie Lowell?
Yeah. Do you teach these folks how to use these diamonds and tell them what it is?
Yes. The answer is yes. Those people who discuss this with the clientele are able to also talk with them of the different ways they might be able to.
We discussed this. This is the part of the operation where after they purchase these things, they can come into the Jamie Lowell room and just smoke with you. And you'll show them how to use it. Is that right? Is that how it goes? Just kidding.
That is not on grounds, of course, not on the parcel. Yep.
That would be a reason to
Thank
travel
you for
there.
that clarification.
That would be a reason to go there and travel.
Jamie retreats to a playground nearby.
Right.
Yeah.
The local school.
You'll find Jamie in his car.
You demonstrate how to use this as a suppository? You
Damn
demonstrate that?
Alan, that was 4 minutes ago. We were talking about that. How do you?
He's still talking about using it.
I think
He wants a suppository, something to be used as a
He's-
suppository.
Alan, this is about diamonds right now. We ruled that out. Unless the temperature is greater than 220.
That was an example of what
Yes.
not to do.
I was just wondering why he's leaning
She got a
forward.
strobe light going on.
But
in
if
this
you
house?
do want
Alan?
some, I
No,
can
Jamie.
bring an
Jamie.
example. I can bring next week an example of a suppository, a cannabis suppository, if you so
Great.
choose
We've
to
got
see
another
what.
episode. Alan is going to perform a medical patient suppository
Okay.
ingestion thing.
So-
or
Very
whatever.
good.
The most excited
Alan,
about
you
it.
can be
But
in
we're
studio
gonna have
that
to
night.
have-
Now be home.
We'll have to have Tommy bleep out or fuzz out certain parts for the
Directions from, what's his
demonstration.
name? Cheech and Chong. He says he uses them.
Hey, so I want to include real quick too about some of, particularly given the title of tonight's
See
show.
that flashing?
Ryan's strategic partners. I think tonight's product is with True Cannabis.
Okay, he's at a fire.
With
Yes,
Kevin,
I did see that on
Kevin
the
Priebus,
label.
right? And then he also he works with Drew Driver. Many people might recognize that name. He's been around for many years working on this issue as an advocate and an activist and participating in the commercial system. And it's Driven Grow. And he also works with Tom Beller at Real Leaf Solutions. And Tom has been the longtime bass player in the tribute band Echoes of Pink Floyd.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Appropriate to mention that given tonight's title.
I like that. Yeah.
Way to bring it all back home there, Jamie. Appreciate that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tied it together.
A lot of linkage.
Are we going to be having some more sampling? Who else is going next? Isn't there other types of ways to dig in? I'm not.
Yes, we actually have some live resin over there.
We do?
also.
Steve?
We do. It's.
Well, I guess we better fire it up, Jim.
Can one actually?
marijuana-
judge-
I wasn't prepared to have other things entered into this before this was closed out.
Okay, isn't resin not marijuana?
Let's make sure we talk
though?
about how awesome Ryan and his products are, and then move
Absolutely.
on.
Let's
to
go
the
ahead and
diamonds
close
right
that
now.
diamonds
The
out.
diamonds is enough. Is it?
Diamonds.
That is a very enjoyable dabbing experience. You
It's a
know,
great
waiting
cause.
for the nail to cool down properly is important.
Very important.
Because you might get a little coughing otherwise, as we did earlier. But if you do it right, like I just did on when it counted live on air, that was a nice dab. That was very nice, and if you dab it correctly and not too deeply and things like that, and you sip it correctly like our buddy Chad once taught me, then it is a very nice smoke. It's a very nice dab. And I like the effects of it. It's very,
You should try that.
It's a very clean
and where-
buzz,
You should
Jim.
try that oil
It's a very
can,
clean one.
Steve. Try the oil can.
Where can
Which one,
we
this
get
one?
this product again?
We can get this product up in Tawas at the Tawas Botanical Provisioning Center.
And it's the
And you
Rid-
may,
Botanical company.
and if you were lucky, you might get to see Jamie there or something.
Maybe.
Ooh.
Hold on, I have some questions. Are the diamonds terpene free?
No, they're concentrated. Terpenes are concentrated inside with as well.
Is that true?
Yes.
Well, there's a article, or there's a news that's been being published lately, even in the some of the small papers up north. I just recently saw one.
How about
It's explaining that these products are in many different stores. Farmhouse, for one, and Ryan talked about this, and Chris Silva is with them, and he used to work with us on the I Legalize campaign and many other things. And those who have had previous legal issues, misdemeanors or felonies in cannabis, get an additional discount off of this redemption line. And at Farmhouse, it's actually on all their products. At Botanical Company, it's just the redemption line. At the Ohm of Medicine, it's on the redemption line also in Ann Arbor.
Are there terpenes in diamonds?
Are there terpenes in diamonds, you said, Michael?
Jamie, yeah. Do you, if you know? I mean, Rick, you
Well,
said.
I mean,
I just wanted.
There is.
Okay.
The diamonds are created in a vessel which is put under incredibly high pressure and then left for a long time. So whatever you put inside that vessel is just highly concentrated and crushed down into crystalline form. So if you're putting inside it concentrate that contains terpenes, then the diamonds at the end will also have those terpenes too. All you're doing is forcing a change in state, not necessarily a change in content.
There's a debate on the someone's just, I don't know. There's someone's suggesting that it's clarify what making the diamonds means. That's obviously a procedure that does some particular process to which the plant material is effectuated, or some other extraction from the plant is being manipulated in some way, right?
Yeah, I believe it.
It's exposed to high
pulls out
pressure.
The
Exposed.
THCA molecule, the THCA molecule.
Is removed?
Yes, and that's what.
And the THCA molecule
that's
is
the crystal.
That's the so there may not be is there terpene in it or not?
Without the sauce is where the according to this Weed Maps article, the sauce is where the terps come in. I don't know.
So that's what they're arguing over here, that the crystal
let's
is.
see what the word papers say.
What's that?
This
Well,
is from
it's
Weed
still
Maps.
the point is they are great diamonds for
I'm
what they
not-
are, and then we're checking them out and talking about that.
But when we say like what
It's
is
a very
what
new
are-
technology,
What
new
are,
stuff.
No, when we say what is a diamond, it's obviously the
It's a THCA crystal.
THCA.
Yes.
It's not even
Non-psychoactive.
non-psychoactive.
Until it reaches the point in
That's
which
why it
it's
has to be heated, is
decarbed.
THC, right? When but that's when it becomes on fire.
And as an example, earlier when we were trying this out, I don't think I got the nail hot enough. And, I mean, there was something that I was getting something, but I got done with it and I was like, from what I've heard about these diamonds, I didn't feel anything at all. But later when we were getting it hot enough, then I started feeling the effects. So the importance of getting your nail hot enough.
Yeah, that's really important. It's important not to get it too hot, and it's important not to heat it up just enough. So you want it in the I believe it's the 300 to 400 degree temp range, which is a lot easier for someone to obtain with the use of an electronic nail or an e-nail, some people call it.
Yeah.
Where you can just dial it in and let it sit, and then you don't have to heat it up with a torch. You
Right,
just
it's
go ahead and
automatic.
drop it in there.
Yeah.
So that's very handy, and for those people that may want to utilize concentrates, not necessarily wanting to mess with the torch because that can be intimidating for some folks, and steer them away from it, that's a great alternative.
But I know the kids all like them, the diamonds.
Yeah.
The kids are into the dabbing as
There's
well.
there's certainly some purity of some
dance.
kind in order for it to take on the shape, right? It's like you're actually seemingly isolating the molecule in some capacity. And is there any thought, Jamie or Rick or anyone, that's obviously in order to remove the THCA molecule, you need to heat it up at least 220 degrees fire. But what is it? Does that particular heat impact the the effect of it when it combusts? In other words, does if it's at a heat of 400 degrees, which is something that may be on here, versus butane lighter that's at I don't know.
Heat will always degrade THC.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, really?
If it's too hot, it's gonna waste
burns it
it.
up.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why you gotta get a nice little sweet
Yeah, I
spot.
guess. So
A sweet spot.
Right. So I mean, would someone be better off just using a lighter?
No,
we're not going to get
you
it
can't
hot
get it
enough.
hot enough. That's why you can't burn it in
Hot
your
enough to-
bowl. Because you can't. The flame on that is not gonna heat that concentrate enough to maximize your.
Why? It'll certainly get it hot enough to 220. No.
It's not gonna.
gotta get
It'll
hotter
do
than
something, but it's not gonna do what it.
Why?
what
220 is what
you're gonna waste it.
decarboxylate. That's the.
Right.
So.
It's got
And we're talking about combustion of smoke of heat. That's got.
Vaporize. I mean, it's not even combustion. It's vaporization. So.
Well, there's a difference. So you got to get this certain heat in order to vapor.
Yes.
Versus just
Yeah,
combusting
and
it
you're
in
dealing
fire.
and you're dealing with an oil base. So this isn't a water-based molecule. So
It's a molecule that is not. I mean, because it needs more heat. You're saying in order
Yeah.
to effectuate. You said it's probably, there's maybe more than 220.
It's much more than.
I'm not saying that 220. I don't
It
even
may
know what
be
a
more than
fire is
220.
fire. What's the heat of fire?
This guy
Alan, what's
says-
the heat of fire? That's like a legal question.
What
What's
is
the
the heat of fire?
What's the temperature?
The heat of fire, you can.
What's
yeah,
the
you can
temperature
answer
of fire?
that.
451
here-
Fahrenheit.
What?
451 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Depends on what kind of wood you're burning.
That's too hot.
Dirty Dan and I are going to start a new
paper
band
fire.
called The Heat of Fire.
Yeah, you're right. There's different fire temperatures. The paper fire is 451.
There's a couple of different. From what I've been seeing here, is it sometimes also an independent flavor type of thing? Because some people would rather, of course, getting it too hot, it's really harsh on your throat,
Right.
and it's not something that it's not going to
Probably
be
not that
pleasurable,
healthy.
right? But if your temp is too low, then it's going to not burn your concentrate enough.
So-
but you'll get a flavor from it. So my son used to always say, "quote, you got to waste it to taste it." So I don't know.
Good advice.
There's a lot of work involved with ingesting these diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
cannabinoids don't even begin to vaporize until 285 degrees.
Ah.
People have studies, apparently, I'm not sure what studies, but studies,
Yes.
which sounds, important and certainly commanding on the issue, have found that the sweet spot for vaporizing cannabis is around 338 degrees.
Nice. Okay. All right.
Stoner studies.
You got to do your homework
Yeah.
to do
What
these
is
diamonds.
so what are you losing by smoking it in a flame?
Well, I think it's the fact that it's combusting is more of the issue for people.
What about this torch? How could that not be hurting it?
Well, it's just different. You're not heating the compound to a point where it combusts. It's simply vaporizing.
Right.
So it's just different.
Just heat affecting it instead of straight fire.
Right.
Yeah.
How hot is that piece of glass?
I mean, it's pretty hot, but if it's too hot, that's when people have ill effects, and then you're just combusting, and you're screwing it up at that point. You don't want to combust the material; you want to vaporize it, and it's
So
not.
this material is going to be added once your bong or whatever you're going to use, once it reaches its heat point, then you're going to add it to it.
Yes.
It's not going to be in the
No.
bong as you're reaching the heat point.
No.
No, that will be a waste.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, because you have to go through the combustion there in order to get to the vape.
You want it to
If it's
kind
in there.
hit it and sizzle.
All this.
How hot do you
Alan,
have to heat it to use it as a suppository?
Oh God,
Oh
Alan.
my gosh.
For you,
Alan, you're gonna
Alan,
tell us.
450
Alan,
degrees.
Alan's obsessed. He's coming in the studio.
He's
to
going to do a
demonstrate.
full report on it next week. These are just rhetorical questions.
450
Don't you want to know?
degree anal
Tune in next week
suppository for Alan.
when Alan will tell you how hot it is for a suppository.
Yes.
He's going to answer all these questions. He's offered himself up there.
Thank you, Alan.
Alan, here's a question. What is this? What is, Alan, this is how you've been ingesting cannabis as the, in your religious function as the Rasta rabbi. It's always been by dabbing, right? That's always been your thing. You're not like a joint or pipe guy, are you? You've always been a dabber. Is that right? That's like your generation?
No, I've always
What?
been a joint. I've always been a joint or a pipe guy.
Really? Not like a Jack Herrera pipe or some old school name of, classics. Oh, what do you know? Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your
okay.
dab rig? Where's your dab rig? I think they call it.
I don't have a dab rig.
Okay.
Oh, you might have to go on the hunt for one at the smoke shop.
No, I'm a joint man.
I see
Yeah.
clearly under 2.5 ounces.
You're prepared.
Anyways, the lawyers that we've met who ingest cannabis at the marijuana law section, not to name anybody, of course, but there was a lot of dabbing taking place, and the theory being that you can ingest less, have more,
Effect.
more effect with less, and maybe even smells less. Any theories on that, Jamie or Rick?
Sounds like less is more.
I was in that dab room. They had a nice dab room set up in a 4-inch carbon filter, but I was still smoking joints there.
Yep. I
I
saw
just
you.
never been a dabber.
Go ahead,
It
Jamie.
is really more for the kids. The
Is
kids
it?
really
The
like it.
THC content
Combustion.
is way higher, of course.
Yeah. Combustion creates certain tars and oils that are not necessarily created by vaporization. So those tars and oils are how odor clings in a room. So
Right.
combustion does that.
And the coughing is because it's too hot, not because of the intensity.
Usually.
Is it
Well,
true?
it could be if somebody leaves a little
Usually.
butane in their product, it might get you to cough as well.
That's a good question. Would the, if done properly, and despite last week's guest that Jamie, I think he wrestled with her, Zoom wrestled, I think I'd call it. But
He did.
and she dispelled the myth, Jamie, that the using cold water ice cubes does not reduce the dangers.
Yes.
She's talking about combustion.
Keep
Does
the
it-
ice out of the bong, Jamie.
Well, that's for combustion, right?
No,
She
nothing
was
wrong
not.
with doing it. It's just not particularly add health to anything.
No, but if the factor of coughing, if done properly, if the one factor that could make you cough is that it's too hot, and you ice it, the vaporizer, does that not fix that? That was not part of the study. She wasn't thinking in terms of, right?
I said that's the idea. I think it probably helps a little bit of,
Yeah, it's supposed to
solves the
help.
problem for everybody. But I'm sure since it goes through an ice cube, it must
So
cool down a little bit.
Lots of people cough off vaporizers all the time. All the time.
Those are hot too.
It could be because of the heat, though, I'm saying. If you can remove that. So here's a question. Does the cooling of the dabbing by way of ice cubing, which we're calling, it's created into a vapor, going through an ice chamber, does that change the outcome of a too hot, right? Too hot.
I've experienced taking a hit in from an iced down bong, and it helps to soothe my throat. Whether or not it has any health benefits or calms the temperature in the lungs, having some kind of water vapor that's liberated from that ice cube makes the hit less harsh.
And I agree with you. And the guest last week, as you recall, disputed that. And I'm even adding an additional wrinkle to the question, which is we're talking about a heat that is now not just combusted the material, it has actually vaporized it. So you have a different, it's not smoke, it's vapor, right? That's what we're talking about? So does the vapor, as it goes through the chamber, does that temperature, I don't know, that's like a science question. But really the question is...
There's some problems with that whole thing, obviously, I think, as we discovered during the discussion. So...
Yeah, I've not seen an ice-cooled vaporizer, though. I've seen lots of ice-cooled combustion devices, but we got a lot of experienced people here. Anybody seen an ice-cooled vaporizer before?
It's got water in it. What does it matter if it's warm water or cold water? Or is that just...
Is there a vaporizer where the vapor actually goes through water before you inhale it?
No, but I've seen those vaporizers.
We're talking about this dab rig. We're calling that vapor smoke, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's all. I mean, yes. I don't know.
This dab rig has water in it.
Here's a bit more important question.
Recycler.
Here's a more important question. When one is using a dab rig as a suppository,
oh boy,
what is the temperature that's most best for that particular patient?
300
Alan will answer that question.
degrees.
Alan will answer that question as well
I'm
next
sure
week.
he does. Hey, so I'm being told that Enal or Puffco is good for those. Would be good for those diamonds.
Email?
I searched all over Flint for a damn
in
Puffco today,
electronic
couldn't
nail,
find one.
E-nails.
Email?
In when you get an electronic nail or an e-nail,
yeah.
you put a coil around the bucket there
Yeah.
that that maintains a consistent heat.
Nice. I've seen those. Right.
Well, they got those automatic ones too that shake when they're done or vibrate when they're ready or something. And
These things are
dab
can be
things.
put into and are purchased by way of what is now known as cartridge, right? We used to be called concentrates. They renamed it, but yes. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
You're not putting diamonds into a cartridge.
All right, but
I mean, not on your own. They make the manufacturer. No, the terpenes for sure. There's lots of terp carts out there. Lots of terp carts.
Is that a thing? Would someone do that?
Terp it up.
No, with the diamonds. Why not? I mean, it's not hot
Because
enough.
it's too thick. It's too thick, and the way that most of those vaporizers are,
They don't get hot enough.
you
To
can't.
explode in
It'll
your
clog
pants,
it.
right?
Right.
Go through a lot of work just to get it down into a crystalline form, and then having to reconvert it back to a liquid form in order to be utilized by the vaporizing device seems like a lot of wasted work.
Unless you're able to generate that amount of heat, that's the test. If you can kind of look at, like in a vapor that's like pumping out. I don't know.
Well, this type of cannabis ingestion is more work. That's for sure, I think. It's more work to get it all going, but
It happens when you
but
legalize
it's
it.
less time to
A lot of moving parts.
ingest. I guess it's a quicker ingestion, more prep time.
More prep time.
Is that safe to say? Do you
Pros
think?
and cons.
No. I know us
Fewer
old-timers-
inhalations. Yep, same effect with fewer inhalations.
Yes. Yeah.
And also the lower temperature of the vapor that you're bringing into your lungs itself makes it more ideal for elderly or respiratory compromised individuals. And if you have a difficult time rolling because you have arthritis in your fingers, your hands are difficult, it might be easier for you to actually put a dab on an e-nail, like Amanda described, something that you just turn on by pushing a button and a switch, and then utilizing that in order to have your cannabis intake as opposed to the traditional methodology. So
Yeah, I'm being told that we all sound like we're like 80 talking about this stuff right now.
Yeah, that's
too.
what I was just thinking. We're like the old timers who like our herb, and
we should have had an
these
expert on
damn kids and their concentrates. But I'll sit in a room with the kids and do concentrates all damn night.
Steve was just
I'm
playing
trying to
guinea
figure
pig.
out where I buy the email for doing the dabs. Where do I buy that email?
You have to submit your email. You have to submit your email, and then
Alan
they'll send you
wants
one.
to do the dabs. Oh my God.
That's funny.
I remember when oil first really began to be a thing in Michigan. And like at the very beginning when I first started getting involved, and it's really amazing how far the industry of concentrates has come and all the different varieties.
Different types of.
The purity, the different combinations. I mean, the whole thing is
A lot of
just
ingenuity
incredible.
behind it all. Yes.
Yeah. So-
Here's an interesting legal fact. It was described the diamond is THCA, right? So this is in essence the plant marijuana when it is harvested has THCA. It doesn't become THC until something happens, some fire or right. So all of the marijuana that's ever been seized, ever, plants, whatever, is THCA plant.
Well, some of it. Well, most of it.
Plant, right?
Well, I mean, there's THC. I mean, there's two things that can convert THCA to THC, and one is heat, and time also enters into that equation when you talk about degrading cannabis, and it doesn't take.
But if they take the plant, in order for them to determine if there is THC, the way the state police test it, that's a better way to say it. they use methane, dropping it in, and that breaks off that carbon molecule that it has it's the same impact as the heat on the THC that gets rid of the A that one ingests. So my point is that when they receive it into evidence, they perceive it as THCA,
and then
not a controlled substance. I'm just saying to you.
But and then they convert it into a controlled substance.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Every single plant. This is how they test. Is that kind of, if you think about it, I mean, and think of all the arrests. They get it and they call it marijuana, but it's, what about it's illegal? Well, in order for it to be marijuana, it's got to be Schedule 1 THC. When they send it to the lab, they can't prove that it's Schedule 1 THC. It's THCA to them. They have to manipulate it. You understand?
Yeah.
Alan, you got anything to say about that?
Rick's falling asleep over there.
Alan Peisner.
I'm still here. They it calls into question all those old arrests, but I think the definition of marijuana has changed. I'm not sure if those old arrests would still be invalid in that, because the definition of marijuana and implying the greater than 0.3 THC is a newer definition.
Yes, but interestingly, it used to be any part of the cannabis sativa plant is marijuana, right? So if they get this plant-like material, how do they say that it's marijuana? It looks like it, smells like it. Well, they send it to the lab. And they test to see whether it has THC. And you know what the lab used to do? The lab would look at it, macro, and then under the microscope, micro, and then they would do a Ducanoids-Levine, and if it changed colors, that tells them that it has cannabinoids. So they see a green leafy planting material that has cannabinoids. It's not even THC. Then they send it to if they want to do a GCMS on it, what they're looking for is whether there's THC. In order for them to get the THC, they heat it up, and it then identifies the molecule with their
from the THCA to the THC
in order to make it illegal. Right.
So the question then becomes, is what the defendant originally had illegal? Because it probably didn't have the THC.
I'll tell you why it was so interesting, because I had a client that it came out, we were doing a Section 4 defense, Section 8, Section 4, and his whole point, he would make his oil in a way that did not decarboxylate it, so they could take more of it, right, without getting. Jim, isn't that the way to do it?
I mean, it depends. If you don't decarboxylate your oil, then at some point it probably is going to have to be decarboxylated, unless you want to use it for some other purpose, like THCA has plenty of medical applications.
That's what I'm talking about. So as he was explaining this while he was testifying, the judge began to realize that as he was describing it, it didn't meet the criteria of THC oil. It was THCA oil. I mean, it had other cannabinoids in it, but it had not gotten to the heated level of being THC. And he realized, he saw a light bulb go off in his head, like how this, applies and how it doesn't become, and he couldn't understand it, Anyways, he threw it all out I think the prosecutor conceded. And that would be exact case that governmental qualified immunity, if didn't and shouldn't have applied. Maybe we should be suing for attorney's fees.
But they were acting in good faith, right?
No.
They didn't mean it.
Yeah.
And they have qualified immunity.
Yeah, they have qualified immunity.
Yeah. Yep, they sure do.
So, where are we? What do we got here? What's our next topic? Is it too late? It's 10:14.
2,800-year-old cannabis.
Oh, yeah, Alan, what's the story on that? Why don't you tell your story? I know you want to talk about it.
There you go. It's a good time for that.
What is it?
Yep.
Where is it still on?
These archaeologists found some ancient cannabis in southern Israel, 2,800 years old. They actually think that it was used for religious ceremonies back then. And what I thought was interesting was they referred to it as hashish and said it was likely burned atop dried animal droppings.
Wow. Wow, that's where your suppository
That's why I was so
fixation has
interested.
been. Yeah, I understand
Right.
now.
So.
But anyway, this was in southern Israel at a place called Tel Haddad excavation site near Jerusalem that they found this stuff. So it just shows how long cannabis is an important part of our culture and also how important it's been for suppositories.
Alan, you are not. You're certainly aware of all the references are in both the Old Testament and the New Testament to cannabosum.
All of them.
Yes. Yes.
All those testaments.
Yes. Yes.
Even the New Testament, huh?
Yes.
How many
This
are?
bud's-
How many are in the Old and the New combined? Would you say? How many references?
I don't know. How many are there?
I have no idea.
There is.
I thought you knew. Michael said you knew.
There's.
You know what would be a good thing to do is you get a PDF of the Bible and just do a simple word search
Yeah,
with a
it's
PDF
a
reader.
good idea.
I thought that's why you're the Rasta rabbi, and we're going to report back on that and all kinds of
That's right.
suppository uses for medical marijuana.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah,
I will report on
tell us
that after
about
I
that.
demonstrate the suppository. use.
Okay.
I think there's even an exception in the Bible for
Cannabis suppositories.
Make
cannabis
sure you do some
suppositories.
manscaping so that
Loophole
way.
is the loophole.
The
Yeah.
that's funny. The what do you call them? The oh my God. The
Do we
smoke,
also-
what are the smoke rooms in the Bible?
The smoke rings.
Rooms, the Bible.
But when the Bible refers to the
Yeah,
herb
look into the-
of the earth, does that count for cannabis, or do we have
Sweathouses?
to have it actually said cannabism? I mean, how directly does the reference have to be? Does it have to have a C in the word?
Could be
or can
totally,
you use the
totally
word?
coincidental that word happens to sound like
It could be.
cannabis. I
It
mean,
could be. I mean, it's not, but it could be.
canvas.
You know, Alan isn't the first, person to say this. It's been said over and over and over again because it's true.
Well, canvas is made from cannabis. All those old sailing ships.
Save George Bush. You ever heard that
with their
story?
s-
Alan, you ever heard that story where George Bush was brought in his parachute and hemp? You ever heard that story?
I think I've told
that's
that a
like
few
that's
times.
like what he does to me all the time. Like this
Parachute
Alan's,
of hemp.
Alan's like slide that he spends 30 minutes talking about, and then I ask Alan, "Hey, you ever heard that story, Alan?" About Alan is the master of that, by the way.
He
He's-
is.
Well, it saved his life. Cannabis saved his
Well,
life.
whatever. Change the topic. I'm just saying your technique of doing that is funny.
Segue.
Because
It's
his
called a
parachute was
segue.
made out of hemp.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, but Alan's been talking about that. And I like just asked him if he's ever heard this story. Of course he has. He's been talking about it. But Alan does that to me all the time. Is what I'm saying. Stuff he's been listening to me say that'll ask me, "Did you hear about blah blah blah?" But like earlier with your qualified immunity, that's the answer. Like months later, I've been screaming about. I mean, I'm not the only one. You're right. Great minds think alike. One could say, right?
Yeah.
They may say I'm a dreamer.
But I'm looking forward to next week,
But
Anna.
I'm
You're
not
gonna
the
be
only
the entire show. We're gonna look forward to you reporting on the whole medical side of this. And
Excellent.
Suppositories.
Yeah.
Does that mean I get to take next week off?
Should we get
and
it-
Alan can sit in the hot seat?
should we have a urologist standing
we're
by
gonna-
just in case there's some problems?
No, Tommy said we can stick Alan in the studio off to the corner there, and that way he can
There's
be
a
filmed,
seat
and if there's
with
any
no
action
rump.
with the suppository, it'll be contained.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We gotta make sure we got a speedy cleanup.
That's right.
Who's going to be the proctor for that?
Oh, well,
Well, we'll have some filmers, but we're gonna have to work on the
We may have to bring in
It's
Dirty Dan.
self-administered.
for the job,
Self-administered.
Michael. That sounds like a job for Dirty Dan.
It really does.
Really
Like he
does.
leaves a skid
I
mark
may
on
be
that
on
couch,
vacation
you won't
next
be able
week.
to really see it that well.
So we're bringing Dirty Dan in.
Dirty Dan to do the dirty job.
Dirty Dan and his dirty deeds.
The legend of Dirty Dan. Every week he gets mentioned.
I should announce that for those that are interested, I saw someone mention in the comments of that Schedule 1 is a joke. Comorn Law, in conjunction with the Cannabis Council, Jeff Frazier, and on behalf of John Sinclair, did file a lawsuit at the end of 2018.
You forgot to mention I got to serve it.
And it did not encapsulate, of course, the recreational law that came later, but we made our arguments based upon the laughable proposition that it was Schedule 1, and the head of the pharmacy board, one of the people on the board of the 5 people, is also someone who's on the appointed board to give out licenses for dispensing medical marijuana. And the idea that the controlled substances model of what controlled system means in terms of pharmacists and, manufacturing companies compared to the, like the retail locations that were buying cannabis from caregivers is not controlled and hard to reconcile. But nevertheless, we filed that lawsuit in the Court of Claims. We were opposed by the Attorney General. And after being opposed to the Attorney General, we lost on standing. We then appealed to the Court of Appeals and have a court date. We were given oral arguments, and then they took them back because of they're just going to rule on the briefs, but they said they're going to call it, so they need any commentary. And that's how they left it. But we did have our court date that there will be an opinion that's written, so we get to have that now. Anyone that wants to, an amicus brief from an organization is always helpful. We've reached out to a couple of them that, but if your lawyer, somebody, Alan Peisner, may want to hire him to help out. But this is certainly an important issue that we want to pressure as much influence and
I wonder if we can get
policy.
LEAP on this issue. We didn't think of that.
Well, it's time now that we have our, they're going to rely on the briefs. We have to July 16th, Alan, I sent you the date, remember? July 16th or something? You told me to send it to a different email or something like that. You didn't even comment, but nevertheless. So, Alan,
well, we'll have to discuss.
Don't waste my time and send it to the other email. That's the kind of shit.
What exactly we need from LEAP, and I can call them and ask them if we can get that.
It's a good question.
July 8th.
Because that's a good organization to have behind something like this, I think. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a speaker for the organization. I'm saying it because I think it's an organization that I think can pull some weight behind things like this. That's when we need to call them in.
Calling in the heavies.
Calling in.
They're going to decide on briefs July 8th. Is there a deadline for submitting the amicable briefs?
That's what you just asked them, didn't you?
Well, the decision's July 8th. I don't see anything about the amicus brief, so.
Well, no, that's when the oral arguments were supposed to be.
Right.
Which they then took away from us.
I suppose you could file a motion for leave to file an amicus brief before then. Anyone who's interested.
Anyone who's interested, I believe tomorrow's the 12th, which means that the salons are opening.
Oh. Yeah, I think my daughter goes back to work next week.
So I am on the horn in the morning.
Boom.
Well, at my daughter's salon, Amanda, they have 800 clients waiting.
Oh, I know it's going to be a wait. I'm going to try. That's why I'm trying to hit him in the morning and like
Horn in the morning.
800 that are like waiting in the
queue.
In the hopper for an appointment.
With roots about this long.
Yep.
Jamie, explain to Dewey that you are not sitting in front of a strobe light and why your lighting is so
And there's
fantastic.
no tops in front of you.
Yeah, he was confused before. I just want to clarify for him. He thinks there's some optical illusion.
I'm not in front of a strobe light, in front of real fire and a light from my phone combination.
And when you say fire, you're not talking about vaporizing. You're talking about combustible fire.
I'm talking about
You're talking about wood with a fire.
Oh, he's got
okay. You got a candle?
He's got a controlled fire pit.
Oh.
Is that is a controlled thing?
That's real stuff.
It's synthetic. It's synthetic fire. He's got some kind of It's not even combustible. It's not even sloppy fire. It's like some kind of synthetic.
It's synthetic fire.
Yeah, look at it. That's what Dewey called it.
Yeah, it's not even hot.
What is it? A tube or something like that? How do you even do that? Have you been using that to smoke your diamonds?
Yeah,
what do you do?
you've been just puffing on that.
He's heating up that pen or something. I don't know.
What are you doing, Jamie?
Jamie, give us the story.
What are you doing, Jamie?
I'm hanging out with everybody else.
I know that leaning forward's a little bit suspicious there, Jamie.
Yeah,
I think you're trying to take my act away from me next week.
Yeah.
Well, we do appreciate.
I am not.
We do appreciate you
No threat.
bringing the redemption diamonds. That was very that was nice of you, and we appreciated you taking a sample of that and hopefully we can make it up to your spot in East Tawas, the botanical company.
As a matter of
That'd be
fact,
very cool.
I may stop by there Sunday on my way home from Sheboygan.
Very cool.
So I may stop in. I don't know if you'll be there, but I'd like to stop in and see the place.
No, I will not be there, but you'll be well taken care of.
Excellent.
Just don't tell them you're a cop, Steve.
Well, I'll pay an extra 10% on the redemption products as long as they
Just get the
donate it to
5-pack
the
of
cause.
joints. Give the 5-pack of joints and see how that goes.
I probably will.
Are you currently a patient, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a lot of that product line is in the medical side.
section? Okay. Yes, I will be going to the medical side.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, everybody had enough? I think it's about
No, it's also in the
Rec side, too.
MRTMA also too. I'm just
Does it cost more over on the MRTRA
we like
side?
medical side.
Yes, yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because of the way the taxes are and stuff like
All right.
that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's more reason for people to keep their patient cards.
Absolutely. Plus additional legal protections
And,
when needed.
You can get that taken care of over at the elevation station with Amanda. She'll get you.
Yes, I can take care of your card lickety-split with very little effort,
But much bona fide relationship.
but an extremely bona fide relationship
And
with
they,
Bona fide.
an excellent doctor
and she
in
offers
good standing
telemedicine.
with
Right.
Michigan and telemedicine.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank
That's
you
where
guys
you
for
go.
listening.
That's where I tell people to go.
And thank you guys for participating remotely via Zoom.
All right.
Party?
And
Thank you.
sounds like
Thank-
we will see everybody next week, same time, same place.
All right, excellent.
Thanks a lot, you guys. Have a good night.
That's a wrap.
It's a
Thanks a lot.
wrap.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Alrighty.
Lakeland
All right.
Trail.
Good night.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Will work. Everybody take a photo. Social media is where it is at. Next year this should be 10 times as big. Post your photo. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Hey, welcome back. I was digging those tunes. I was jamming. Really, if I wore underwear, I would throw them on stage, but I don't wear any underwear. We'll come back to that. But anyway, I had someone really awesome to introduce you guys to. He is basically going to be the first ever virtual dancing and, the tunes coming out with the cannabis plants. Tom Wall is going to be jamming out with his plants, and this is going to be something you do not want to miss. Tom?
How's it going? So, hopefully, can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, you guys can hear me good? Okay. So, what I'll do is I'll just start off giving a little bit of an explanation on the technology that I'm going to use to perform this. But this device takes two electrodes, one that hooks up to the leaf of the plant, and then one that hooks up to the root. And the one that hooks up to the root looks just like a spike like that, and it goes down the roots. And through the two, what happens is it can register the electromagnetic fluctuations between the two, and it basically makes a wave pattern. Through that wave pattern, it assign musical notes per size of the wave, allowing it to generate music. But the interesting thing about it is that when I got into this, and I've done it with all sorts of different types of plants, but that they not only can play music, but they can play music with you. And they seem to kind of respond to what you do. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I plan on obviously doing this in the Diag, and I was kind of really going to be surprised to see how it would react with that many people around. But this particular variety here is called Cosmic Splooge, and the name of our band, Cosmic Knot, came out of trying to name a cannabis strain a long time ago. And it's the idea of looking for a particular flavor that's very rare. It's kind of like along the lines of Acapulco Gold and the Colombian Gold. You can't find it very often anymore. But this is the culmination of a lot of years of searching, and it's still not quite there, but we're really happy to have this. So this is the Cosmic Splooge plant that really started the whole thing in the first place. But I think we should have it all hooked up now. So let me turn up the volume and allow you guys to hear what it sounds like by itself, and then I'll chime in with it, and we'll try and do a duet. And then I'll let it back to you guys because I know we're trying to keep things rolling. So without further ado, this is the first time a cannabis plant has made music that I know of on any videos, let alone on a virtual form and live facet. So this is really cool. And the fact that this is for Hash Bash is even cooler. 50 years ago, people were going to prison for this. And now we get to have a plant play for everybody. So here we go. translated well. The type of music has been called organoleptic music, meaning organoleptic is evaluating with the senses, and then flora meaning plants, so plants evaluate with the senses. Creating music, so organoleptic music, it's a new variety that just kind of came to life in the recent times, and I've been lucky enough to somehow stumble across it and figure out how to play music with plants, and they seem to play very beautifully along with you. They kind of follow you. It's really strange. But I really appreciate all you guys getting together, and once again putting this on and making this happen still and persevering through all the madness. Really cool that you guys were able to do this, and thanks for everything. Thanks for having me on. I'm gonna let you guys keep on rolling because I know you got a lot to do still. So there's a bunch of amazing musical acts still coming up. So I think Nick Satel is up on deck right now, and then we got a few other artists after that are gonna be really awesome as well. So hang out, chill out, and have a good time listening to some amazing music. Thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Tom.
That was pretty cool, man. So that was the first. It was captured here.
But hashtag will work. Everybody take a photo. Social media is where this is at. Next year this should be 10 times as big. Post your photo. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Camoran Law. Michael Camoran is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Camoran Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Camoran Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Camoran Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Camoran Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Camoran Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.